Chapter 986, Hanlin Academy. No one dared to approach him at this moment. The incidents involving Lu Min and Gu Zhio had left a lasting impression on everyone. However, the Tian family refrained from commenting or making things difficult for Xiao Yunduan. They simply maintained a distance from him, as if he were invisible. Each individual prioritized their own future and avoided any involvement. Xiao Hongxi felt increasingly irritated. He had never anticipated becoming so closely associated with Xiao Yunduan. Initially, he had planned to manipulate others into harassing and humiliating Xiao Yunduan, eager to witness his downfall. After all, he was determined not to let Xiao Yunduan enjoy a good life. But now, he didn't dare to. Yes, he lacked the courage. However, the memory of the 4,000 liang he owed Xiao Yunduan and Xiaoxian, along with the words inscribed on that piece of paper, silenced any complaints he might have had. The couple were unpredictable. What if they were compelled to expose the secret publicly? The humiliation would be unbearable. Consequently, Xiao Hongxi had no choice but to avoid Xiao Yunduan. Even if he accidentally encountered him, he would lower his head and pretend not to notice. Unfortunately, news of their connection reached the ears of others soon enough. Concerned individuals began questioning why Xiao Hongxi wasn't seen with Xiao Yunduan. Your sister is married to Editor Xiao, making you his brother-in-law, right? Congratulations, Brother Xiao, you now have a prestigious son-in-law. Indeed, Brother Xiao, why don't you spend time with him? It's strange to see such distance between you two. Xiao Hongxi grew increasingly frustrated as he witnessed others either teasing him out of curiosity or plotting something malicious. Internally, he cursed at the absurdity of being judged for being a brother-in-law. After all, Xiaoxian was just the daughter of a concubine. Did anyone have close relationships with their concubine's siblings? However, he couldn't express these thoughts aloud. Xiao Hongxi had no choice but to avoid discussing the matter. When he couldn't bear it any longer, he resorted to making vague comments to discredit Xiao Yunduan and shift blame onto him. He insinuated that Xiao Yunduan looked down on the Qiao family because of his position as Primus and lacked respect for them. Upon hearing these rumors, Xiao Yunduan simply smiled and ignored them. If someone was curious enough to approach him, he could only sigh and claim his innocence. Regardless of the inquiries, he would shake his head and remain tight-lipped. He had the support of the senior members of the Qiao family, including Qiao Xian and Qiao Hongxi. What did he have to fear? No matter how hard Qiao Hongxi tried to discredit him, as long as he possessed that leverage, Qiao Hongxi would never dare to cause any trouble. Xiao Yunduan secretly wished that Qiao Hongxi would intensify his discrediting attempts, making the situation appear even worse. It would only amplify the humiliation. Clearly, Qiao Hongxi wasn't particularly clever. After all, he and the Qiao family were holding something over Xiao Yunduan, forcing him to remain subdued. Unfortunately, Xiao Yunduan's words proved ineffective, and the rumors spread even further. Furthermore, certain individuals sought to ingratiate themselves with the Tian family, fueling the situation. Surprisingly, the person who relentlessly attacked Xiao Yunduan was unexpectedly promoted to a vacancy at the Hanlin Academy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 987. Impeachment. To the man's astonishment, he was not only surprised but also delighted. The news caused a commotion among the members of the Hanlin Academy. Everyone there knew all too well that he was not supposed to be promoted this time. In a world filled with intelligent individuals, it became clear to them what had transpired. It was the doing of the Tian family. Officer Tian must have intervened and influenced the decision. Indeed, the Tian family showed no signs of relenting in their pursuit to keep Xiao Yunduan under their control. Others deeply regretted their actions. They had missed a golden opportunity. They lacked the courage to take advantage of such a foolish situation. But now it was too late. If the Tian family wished to see Xiao Yunduan suffer, they would oblige and curry favor with the Tian family. Thus, Xiao Yunduan was burdened with a highly challenging task. He chose not to retaliate and accepted all the responsibilities placed upon him. Someone knowledgeable from the censorate even suggested that Xiao Yunduan should face impeachment. They accused him of being immoral, disrespectful to his elders, rebellious, and treacherous. They argued that he brought disgrace upon all scholars and failed to live up to the emperor's expectations. They claimed he was unfit to hold any official position. Since revealing the involvement of the Tian family was not an option, they seized upon the Qiao family, turning it into an issue. The individual leading the impeachment believed they had found the perfect avenue and took great pride in their discovery. For scholars, possessing both morality and talent was of utmost importance. Once they were accused of immorality, their lives would be utterly ruined. Even the most revered scholar could fall from the heights of acclaim to the depths of despair overnight, let alone the Primus. Secretly, countless individuals were observing the unfolding drama. Normally, the appointment of a junior editor at the Hanlin Academy would not garner the attention of courtiers. Frankly, no one would be so idle as to impeach a minor editor. However, the situation changed when the Tian family became involved. Certain ministers felt that the Tian family was exerting undue influence. After all, it was the Tian family's own mistake for hiring Xiao Yunduan as their son-in-law. What did that have to do with editor Xiao? On the contrary, Xiao Yunduan's refusal to abandon his wife, even if it meant compromising his own future, was quite admirable. The emperor personally intervened, and Officer Tian even shared a drink with editor Xiao in the presence of the emperor, declaring that they should let it go. However, less than 20 days had passed. Now it was time to settle the score. Officer Tian was too arrogant, thinking he would not face any consequences when the Tian family had no involvement in this matter. They would see what the emperor thought of all this. But Xiao Yunduan had been waiting for this moment. What was the point of engaging in a minor dispute within the Hanlin Academy? At most, they would receive a scolding from the officials. It was not as thrilling as appearing in court. Thus, by severing ties with the Qiao family, the Tian family could maintain a clearer perspective. After this incident, the Tian family would think twice before attempting any cheap shots or tricks in the near future. Xiao Yunduan had to give them credit for that. Xiao Yunduan's impeachment left Emperor Xian feeling deeply displeased. The emperor held a favorable opinion of his newly appointed Primus. This young man possessed talent, and his rise from a humble background to the position of Primus was no easy feat. He exhibited diligence and, even after achieving success, did not succumb to greed for wealth and power. Furthermore, he remained steadfastly loyal to his wife. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 988. Xiao Yunduan was a man who adhered to principles and morality. He would not engage in any actions that went against his principles. Emperor Xian had a temperament that could swing between broad-mindedness and narrow-mindedness, depending on his mood and circumstances. When in a good mood, he could easily dismiss offenses and let them slide. However, if he happened to be in an unfavorable state, he could unleash consequences that were detrimental to the offender. In essence, Emperor Xian possessed the power to act as he pleased, and his moodiness was well known. Nevertheless, he was also highly intelligent. One would be wise not to attempt any deceit or manipulation in his presence, as the repercussions would be unbearable for anyone involved. Emperor Xian held a favorable impression of Xiao Yunduan. In fact, he sent someone to gather information about the situation between Xiao Yunduan and the Tian family. As a result, he sympathized with Xiao Yunduan, considering him a pitiable man. However, the fact that Xiao Yunduan was impeached by the censor within less than 20 days of joining the Hanlin Academy led Emperor Xian to doubt that the Tian family had no involvement. What was the motive behind the Tian family's actions? What did old Tian mean? He had assured the emperor that the matter was resolved, even sharing a drink with editor Xiao in his presence as a means to reconcile and seek revenge with a smile? Emperor Xian did not appreciate being disregarded as the emperor. Furthermore, he was intensely curious about the conflict between Xiao Yunduan and the Tian family, prompting him to delve into the details of Xiao Yunduan's connection with the Qiao family. He even made a copy of the letter of severance. The contents of the memorial that Xiao Yunduan had been informed of were strikingly similar to what was written in the severance letter. However, Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian had been coerced into signing the contract, despite its unfavorable terms. No one would willingly accept something that was detrimental to their own interests. The Qiao family's behavior was utterly domineering. They were simply bullying Xiao Yunduan, a recommended individual with no notable prospects, and Xiao Xian, a daughter of a concubine, as if they believed the two were powerless. On the occasion of their only visit to the Qiao family, as Xiao Xian departed, she received a slap across the face. Many onlookers witnessed her tearfully seeking solace in Xiao Yunduan's arms at the entrance of the Qiao family. Yet, the Qiao family shamelessly claimed that it was the couple who had instigated the confrontation. Such an assertion was preposterous. That was the Qiao family's account. Surely, no one else would believe such a fabrication, right? Little did they anticipate that Xiao Yunduan would eventually become the Primus and join the prestigious Hanlin Academy. Qiao Hongxi proved to be the most vexatious of all. He was well aware of the truth, yet he persisted in discrediting Xiao Yunduan. Conversely, Xiao Yunduan remained an honest and well-mannered man. He could only defend himself with a bitter smile and a sigh, insisting on his innocence and refraining from speaking ill of the Qiao family. That was an act of great benevolence. If that gesture didn't suffice, what more could be expected of them? How dare they question Xiao Yunduan's morality? It was utterly absurd. Emperor Xian formulated some conjectures based on the information he had gathered. Xiao Yunduan didn't need to explain anything further. The emperor had already grasped the situation clearly. Feeling that he, as the Primus, had been unjustly treated, Emperor Xian resolved to defend him. Old Tian, that wretched scoundrel, had caused quite a commotion this time. Consequently, the next morning, Emperor Xian of Qi, who had been absent from court for at least half a month and was under the supervision of the crown prince, with the assistance of the second, third, and fourth princes, attended court. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 989, Emperor Xian's Anger. Additionally, Emperor Xian pointed to the memorial and ordered someone to summon strategist Xiao from the Hanlin Academy. He intended to personally interrogate him. Officer Tian and his associates felt a pang of unease, their hearts skipping a beat. The fact that the emperor said, "Please," indicated that the Primus held significant importance to him. They were all perplexed. Emperor Xian had been in power for over 40 years, and a new Primus was appointed every 3 years. It was nothing out of the ordinary. True, this young man was handsome, and people naturally paid attention to him, but what was the purpose behind all of this? They had assumed that the emperor would harbor disdain for Xiao Yunduan and strip him of his position. However, now he was planning to personally interrogate him. Ministers who had a cordial relationship with Officer Tian couldn't help but reproach him for his pettiness. They had already let the matter go, so why did he continue to bear a grudge? As a first-class officer of the imperial court, he had made a mistake due to his family's actions. Yet, the emperor had attempted to reconcile the situation, but Officer Tian persisted, incessantly harassing Editor Xiao. How narrow-minded he was. Others became even more cautious. The Tian family's pettiness served as a warning to tread carefully when forming alliances with them in the future. Who knew when they might unintentionally offend them and incur their lasting enmity? Xiao Yunduan arrived at the court and gracefully performed a kowtow. Emperor Xian couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction upon witnessing this. Just as Xiao Yunduan stood up, Censor Lu glared at him and snapped, "Xiao Yunduan, your immorality, disrespect towards your elders, and lack of decorum are an affront to all scholars. Confess now and seek the emperor's forgiveness, or else you shall persist in your obstinacy." "How dare you!" Emperor Xian erupted in fury. He seized one of the memorials and hurled it toward Censor Liu's head, shouting, "I haven't uttered a word, yet you have the audacity to flaunt your authority. I specifically stated that I would personally conduct the interrogation, and now you seek to pronounce judgment. Who do you think you are? How dare you override me?" The courtiers were left in a state of shock, their heads bowed low and their breath held in anticipation. Censor Lu was taken aback, his mind reeling and his face drained of color. Cold sweat drenched his back. "Your Majesty!" Censor Lu collapsed to the ground, his voice trembling. "I don't dare. I am innocent. I simply couldn't bear what he and Editor Xiao were doing. I couldn't bear it any longer. That's why I spoke up, Your Majesty, please." "You're lying." Emperor Xian remained unmoved by his explanation. He delivered a fierce kick to Censor Lu and sneered. "You're merely bullying him because he is young and inexperienced. You're trying to intimidate him into admitting fault without offering a defense. Do you think him a fool? You must have a death wish to play such a petty trick in front of me." "Your Majesty, I beg you, I would never dare." Censor Lu nearly crumpled to the ground. Fear had rendered his voice hoarse and trembling. He continued to kowtow, the resounding thuds echoing through the silent throne room. The courtiers were seasoned political players, adept at reading between the lines. Censor Liu's intention had been to catch Xiao Yunduan off guard by attacking him before he could gather his bearings. However, the emperor saw through his scheme, laying it bare for all to witness. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 990, Thunder. He had publicly humiliated him. The courtiers were all reminded of a crucial fact. Emperor Xian's temperament was mercurial, and when he turned malicious, he spared no one's dignity. Emperor Xian remained unmoved, a cold sneer on his lips. "Silence! I have no desire to hear any more of your nonsense. My court will not tolerate heretics, evildoers, and despicable individuals like you. Men, remove his black hat, strip him of his official attire, and escort him out of the Golden Throne Hall." Censor Lu felt as if he had been struck by lightning. "Your Majesty," he had intended to plead for mercy, but upon seeing the icy glare in Emperor Xian's eyes, he dared not utter a word. If he said anything more, the emperor would surely reprimand him for his lack of insight. His entire body went limp as he was dragged out of the chamber. Officer Tian felt as though he had been slapped across the face, the sting of humiliation searing through him. But what tormented him even more was the necessity to feign indifference, to act as though nothing had occurred. For he knew that to react would only deepen the humiliation. "Officer Xiao, fear not. I am no tyrant, but I cannot abide those with wicked intentions attempting to deceive me." Emperor Xian turned to Xiao Yunduan, adopting a friendly tone. He gestured for the eunuch to present the memorial to Xiao Yunduan. "If there is anything else you wish to convey, speak freely, and I shall make a fair judgment." "Thank you for your benevolence, Emperor." Xiao Yunduan bowed respectfully, then rose to accept the document. The situation was progressing better than he had anticipated. Xiao Yunduan sighed ruefully as he recounted the events of his visit to the Qiao family with his wife, which resulted in their expulsion and his wife being subjected to physical abuse. He continued, "I possess evidence in the form of a severance letter written by the Qiao family, formally disowning their relationship with both me and Ms. Qiao. However, as they are her family, I could not bring myself to reveal the truth. I had hoped to clear my name, but instead, matters have escalated, and the emperor has been alerted. This is entirely my fault." The ministers were taken aback, while Officer Tian seethed with anger. "Why did you not produce the severance letter earlier? It could have spared us much trouble." Xiao Yunduan requested that Officer Tian retrieve the severance letter from his residence. Emperor Xian sneered. "There is no need. I am already aware of what transpired within the Qiao family. Fearing that you would approach them for financial support, they wrote the severance letter to belittle you. Now that you have risen to the position of Primus, they are envious and seek to tarnish your reputation. How despicable! I recognize the injustice you have suffered in this affair." Xiao Yunduan remained silent, processing the emperor's words. "Thank you for your consideration, Your Majesty," he finally responded. Emperor Xian let out a sigh. As the new Primus, if anyone dares to unjustly humiliate you, you have the right to seek support from the Crown Prince or the other princes. Let's see who would dare to act against you. It was absurd to think that his newly appointed Primus would be subjected to bullying without any support. Emperor Xian found the notion preposterous. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Xiao Yunduan expressed his gratitude once more. Rise, Emperor Xian commanded with a wave of his hand, his gaze coldly sweeping over the courtiers. Is there anything else you wish to address? The courtiers shook their heads, acknowledging that the emperor's perspective was just. No one dared to voice any dissent. They all understood the clear message conveyed by the emperor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 991, Officer Tian. The courtiers watched as the emperor defended editor Xiao, realizing that he had received a stroke of good fortune. With the emperor's support, editor Xiao would have the freedom to act as he pleased at the Hanlin Academy and even have influence over the crown prince and other princes. Emperor Xian expressed his disgust and asked, "What about Xiao? Xiao at Hanlin Academy?" The left assistant minister of the Ministry of Personnel responded, "It is Xiao Hongxi, Your Majesty." "He is no good either," Emperor Xian exclaimed, knowing the internal affairs that outsiders were unaware of. He takes advantage of strategist Xiao's soft-heartedness and bullies him. He is unworthy of his position. Demote him to an ordinary civilian without any rank. If he fails to show improvement, I doubt he can remain at Hanlin Academy any longer. You lack morality. Do not tarnish the reputation of the Hanlin Academy. The left assistant minister bowed, his forehead covered in cold sweat. Yes, Your Majesty. Emperor Xian released his pent-up anger, feeling somewhat relieved. He snorted and dismissed the court. Before leaving, he glanced at Officer Tian and commanded him to attend an audience. Officer Tian respectfully acknowledged, feeling even more ashamed. Xiao Yunduan bid farewell to the courtiers and departed from the Qianxing Palace. He waved to the departing courtiers and made his way back to the Hanlin Academy. The courtiers exchanged glances, shaking their heads, sighing, or even chuckling, each with their own thoughts on the events that had transpired. Editor Xiao was indeed fortunate, and it was clear that she should steer clear of any involvement with him in the future. The behavior of the Qiao family was completely uncalled for. They not only looked down upon editor Xiao and his wife but even went so far as to present them with a severance letter. What gave them the right to fabricate stories about them? The unkindness exhibited by the Qiao family, particularly Qiao Hongxi, was truly disappointing. It was foolish of them to think they could concoct false evidence. How would they feel when the truth inevitably came to light? In Dongnuan Pavilion, Officer Tian stood beneath, respectfully facing Emperor Xian, whose expression was quite grim. "Do you know why I have summoned you?" Emperor Xian inquired. Officer Tian dared not claim ignorance. He kneeled down and said, "I apologize. I did not explicitly order it, but I was not broad-minded enough. I allowed certain tactics to be employed, and I purposefully remained silent. If it weren't for me, those individuals would not have troubled a newly appointed editor. I am deeply sorry, Your Majesty. Please, punish me." Officer Tian kowtowed repeatedly on the ground, expressing his remorse. Emperor Xian, recognizing Officer Tian's astuteness, felt the anger within him dissipate. He acknowledged that Officer Tian possessed a sense of wisdom. "I will not punish you, but you have certainly made a fool of yourself. It's all in the past now, and I have already addressed the issue publicly, haven't I? If anyone dares to bring it up again, teach them a lesson. If anyone dares to resist, why make things difficult for my new Primus? He is talented and virtuous, and I have plans for his future. There is no need for you to create further obstacles for him. It is always commendable to rectify one's mistakes. Just ensure that such a situation does not arise again. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty. I will remember your teachings. I apologize, but concerning my daughter," Officer Tian sighed, his voice filled with regret. Emperor Xian understood the predicament. The Tian family's daughter had always been exceptional and proud, one of the finest among the noble ladies. It was a great disappointment that she had fallen into such a trap in her marriage. No wonder old Tian was so upset. His actions were driven by love for his daughter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 992, Revenge. No one was to blame, it was simply a regrettable mistake. Emperor Xian's expression softened. Very well, let's put this behind us. Never speak of it again. Yes, Your Majesty. You may go now. Thank you, Your Majesty. Officer Tian let out a sigh of relief as he exited the pavilion. That was a close call. He had felt utterly humiliated. For the time being, he would refrain from taking any actions against Xiao Yunduan. He would ensure that nothing would happen to him and that everything would go smoothly within a year. Otherwise, the blame would fall on his daughter, and that was simply exasperating. Officer Tian's annoyance grew, prompting him to change his plans. Instead of heading to the governmental office, he decided to go straight home to Madame Chiao. Inside the residence, Tian Xianxia was engaged in conversation with her mother. Observing Officer Tian's troubled expression, she offered a comforting smile. Who upset you? You must also take care of yourself. Don't let these matters get to you. If you show your anger, it will only invite sympathy from others and make us feel sorry for you. Madame Tian joined in, her smile gentle. Xianxia is right, my dear husband. Look at how filial our daughter is. Xianxia has always been a paragon of filial piety, and I am well aware of that. I am blessed to have such a wonderful daughter. Officer Tian chuckled, finding solace in Tian Xianxia's words. He felt a sense of relief wash over him. However, the weight of his daughter's recent misstep lingered in his mind, causing him further distress. She was such a kind-hearted girl, so why did she have to encounter such unfairness? He could no longer tolerate it. There was no time like the present to seek vengeance. After a brief exchange, Officer Tian escorted Tian Xianxia away and recounted the morning court incident to Madame Tian. Madame Tian felt a sense of suffocation. What does this have to do with you, dear husband? It's not your fault. If that Xiao person has offended someone, it's only natural for others to seek revenge. If he lacks the ability to handle it, he'll have to face the consequences. Why should you bear the blame? The Emperor's actions are completely unfair this time. Are we expected to shoulder the responsibility for anything that befalls the Xiao family? Madame Tian's words were fueled by her frustration, but Officer Tian could only offer a bitter smile and sigh. You're right. What do you mean? From this point forward, I will make it known that no one should cause any trouble for Xiao. I'll ensure that people pay attention to him and offer assistance if anything happens. Dear husband, you're being unreasonable. Madame Tian's annoyance grew. Don't worry, it's never too late for revenge. We can discuss this after a year and a half. Once this matter subsides, we won't be held accountable for any misfortunes that befall him. The Emperor believes that someone is trying to gain favor with me. If I don't take action, the blame will fall on me. Madame Tian's frustration grew. It's just too much. But that's what the Emperor has decided. What can we do? Madame Tian's eyes welled up with tears. She used a handkerchief to wipe them away. Poor Xianxia, she doesn't deserve this. Officer Tian's heart ached. It wasn't just his daughter who had been wronged. He felt deeply humiliated as well. The Emperor's scolding of Censor Lu in front of everyone had been unbearable. He had never felt such shame in the court before. Things will get better in the future. Our Xianxia is wonderful, and she will surely find a great partner. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 993, Venting Anger on His Daughter-in-Law. Yeah, that man doesn't deserve someone like Xianxia. Exactly. Mrs. Tian's frustration lingered, and she pondered for a moment before speaking up. We may not be able to touch Mr. Xiao, but what about Ms. Qiao? Madame Tian didn't want to wait for 1.5 years to seek revenge. The thought of it was infuriating. Officer Tian considered the suggestion and replied, "The Emperor won't interfere in matters concerning women. But be cautious and don't let things escalate." "You can trust me, old master." Mrs. Tian grinned. "Rest assured I know what needs to be done." Madame Tian sneered inwardly. If the Emperor still remembered the man named Xiao, she could temporarily spare him. After all, the Emperor wouldn't always remember him. She would let him live in misery for a while. Her daughter-in-law was merely a concubine's daughter, cut off from her own family. She must have been spoiled by her maternal relatives, which explained her cowardice and lack of intelligence. Humiliating such a woman would be a piece of cake. There were plenty of people willing to do the dirty work for the Tian family. She didn't need to personally intervene. It was for Ms. Qiao's own good, of course. Ms. Qiao had been publicly humiliated by the government officials, and everyone was laughing at her. They were about to witness whether Ms. Qiao could salvage her pride. Then he would realize how mistaken he was. He would learn the weight of his loss if he didn't marry Xianxia. Ms. Qiao's humiliation was imminent, and she would no longer find a place for herself in the capital. The more Madame Tian dwelled on this thought, the more content she became. Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian held a small celebration in the courtyard of the Xiao family. Both of them felt a sense of relief. With this knowledge, the Tian family wouldn't dare to make a move for at least 1.5 years. And 1.5 years provided ample time to bring about significant changes and accomplishments. In a few days, he'll find an opportunity to inform the secretary of Hanlin College that we'll be returning to our hometown to pay respects to our ancestors. We'll take care of everything back home. Xiao Xian nodded in agreement. Yes, we should handle our family affairs diligently. Xiao Xian couldn't simply disregard the fields and other properties they owned. Although Ms. Fang and her family would assist in looking after them, the Yuezheng family in the province would also lend a helping hand. However, Xiao Xian's unique abilities were required to tend to the fruit trees and crops. They decided to explore the capital and purchase gifts to bring back home, allowing everyone in the family to experience a taste of the city. Xiao Yunduan had no objections to the plan. While Xiao Yunduan attended to his duties at the Imperial Academy, Xiao Xian ventured out with Li Qiu and Li Xia to shop for various presents for their family. Considering the long journey ahead, Xiao Xian refrained from purchasing too many items, opting for lighter and more manageable choices. However, due to the nature of snacks and pastries, it was challenging to transport them over a long distance. As a result, they reluctantly decided to forego the delectable treats and instead purchase dried fruits that could be used to make candied delicacies. Xiao Xian made another visit to various pharmacies, hoping to come across some live ginseng roots. The intention was to acquire them and store them in the space, anticipating the possibility of pleasant surprises. Xiao Xian couldn't shake off the feeling that the space was on the verge of undergoing an upgrade. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 994, Buying Living Ginseng. At this moment, if she could acquire 10 or 20 live ginseng plants and cultivate them, it would likely yield positive results. Expensive flowers like orchids and peonies could also prove to be highly effective. However, in the capital, such luxurious flowers and trees were always in high demand. They would be swiftly purchased by princes, kings, monarchs, and affluent families before even reaching the market. Money wasn't an issue for her, but she lacked the necessary skills. Hence, contemplating the matter was essentially futile. The demand for ginseng in the capital was exceedingly high. Perhaps, if luck favored him, he might be able to make a purchase? Xiao Xian had an exceptionally fortunate day. She successfully procured some live ginsengs from 2 different stores. In total, there were approximately 30 ginseng plants, varying in size. Xiao Xian felt as if she had discovered a treasure and managed to acquire everything at a bargain price. The amount she spent ran into tens of thousands. Even the wealthiest families in the capital did not purchase ginseng in this manner. Xianxia gained quite a reputation in the ginseng business, with numerous ginseng vendors eagerly offering their products to her. Even the 2 stores she had bought from were enthusiastically recommending some aged ginsengs. However, Xianxia declined all their offers. Although these aged ginsengs were of high quality, she could sense their lack of vitality. Over time, they had dried up and transformed into mere medicinal herbs. No matter how excellent they might be, they were of no use to her. Xianxia planted the 30 or so ginseng plants in her garden space. The following day, she witnessed all of them taking root in the soil and gradually rejuvenating. The spiritual energy was so abundant that Xianxia could see the expansion of the spring water area from the Proficiency Sutra. Standing near the spring, she gazed into the distance, unable to discern its end. It extended at least 3,000 to 4,000 meters away. Curiously, Xianxia casually broke a pomegranate and inserted it into the soil. To her surprise, the pomegranate firmly took root in the ground. The interspace no longer rejected ordinary plants like it used to. Even simple items were now accepted by the space. Xianxia was astonished. She had no idea how many things she could cultivate in this vast and fertile land. Regardless of the crop, it was evident that it would thrive and grow faster within this space. Moreover, the hut provided a storage space where items would never spoil. In the future, even during times of hardship like the Great Desolate Year, there would be no need to worry. Xianxia pondered over how to maximize the utilization of this land. Xiaoxian's first step was to divide the remaining 6 potatoes and plant 4.5 of them. She allocated 1.5 potatoes to the backyard of her small house in the capital. When the time for harvest arrived, it would be difficult for anyone to distinguish them if they were mixed together. The yield in the interspace was even more impressive. In less than 2 years, she would accumulate countless potatoes as seeds. Initially, she had some concerns. The potatoes needed to be planted within the current year, as planting them too late would be past the suitable season. Even though she had the assistance of the interspace, it wasn't ideal to delay the planting for too long. Since Xiaoxian was returning to her hometown with Xiao Yunduan, she couldn't plant the potatoes there. They had to be planted in the capital. However, the journey was long and time-consuming. It would take more than 3 months to reach their destination. Who knew what would become of the potatoes by the time they returned to the capital? Nevertheless, she had no other option. She was still in a dilemma, but unexpectedly, the interspace upgraded and became more accommodating. Now, she no longer had to worry. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 995. Updated Space. They could simply plant some in the backyard. Even if something went wrong, they could utilize the space to compensate for any setbacks. That was an incredibly positive development. Xiaoxian sensed that there was more than 300 mu of available land for cultivation in the intermediate space, although the exact number was not fixed. She could sense that the amount of arable land was increasing every day, but she wondered how long it would continue. Based on current estimates, another 300 mu would be available in approximately 10 days. If this situation could persist for 1 or 2 months, it would be fantastic. Xiaoxian had already made a firm decision. She was going to plant rice on the additional 300 mu. Farming in this space was different from outside. There was no need to flood the fields with water. The seeds could be sprinkled directly. When she purchased the rice seeds, she felt a bit overwhelmed by the large patch of land. Even if she were to plant just rice seeds alone, it would be an arduous task for one person. So Xiaoxian attempted to plant the seeds using her divine sense, which turned out to be successful. She was overjoyed. Within less than an hour, all 300 mu of rice had been planted. She concentrated and composed herself. She could even feel the rice seeds silently burrowing into the ground, reaching a depth, preparing for germination and gathering strength to emerge from the soil. At night, she couldn't resist coming to check again. The 300 mu of rice fields were already displaying a faint, tender green color. The rice seeds had already sprouted, and small needle-like sprouts were growing. From a distance, the sight was a soothing, pale green, soft, and adorable, evoking a sense of relaxation and joy. Xianxia was filled with immense delight. It was as if they had already glimpsed the bountiful harvest that awaited them. This place was abundant in fertility and vibrant energy, alleviating any concerns about diseases, pests, and unpredictable weather. They were undoubtedly poised for a bountiful harvest. Xianxia contemplated that upon her return to the village, she would plant additional fruit trees and create an orchard. This way, fresh fruits could be enjoyed throughout the year. And the beauty of it was that it didn't matter whether one resided in the north or south. Xianxia happily entertained these thoughts when Xiao Yunduan brought up the idea of paying respects to their ancestors to the Chancellor of Hanlin College. But now, he needed to carefully consider the matter. It was every scholar's ultimate dream to return to their hometown with honor after achieving the position of Primus. Paying homage to their ancestors was a glorious act, one that brought great honor to their family. The Chancellor dared not refuse them outright, yet he also hesitated to agree too hastily, fearing the wrath of the Tian family. So, with a smile, he vaguely stated that he needed some time to ponder the request and promised to provide Xiao Yunduan with an answer within a couple of days. Meanwhile, he assigned some tasks to keep Xiao Yunduan occupied, allowing him the opportunity to pay tribute to his ancestors. Xiao Yunduan nodded in understanding. The courtyard scholar let out a sigh of relief. He couldn't reject Primus Xiao's request, yet he had intentionally made things challenging, making it difficult for the Tian family to find fault with him any longer. Xiao Yunduan and Xianxia paid little heed to these circumstances. On that day, Xianxia received an invitation from Madame Lin of Hanlin Academy, inviting her to a gathering the next day. Xianxia promptly replied, assuring her attendance. Of course, she would attend. Xiao Yunduan worked at Hanlin Academy and had numerous colleagues there. If she were to skip the gathering, it would seem rather unsociable. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 996, Guest. Xianxia harbored doubts about her ability to navigate the gathering. Hanlin Academy held significant governmental authority, and many officials within were financially struggling. Some frequented pawnshops numerous times in a year. However, such positions held great value. To achieve fame and become an exemplary figure among scholars worldwide was to etch one's name into the annals of history. Moreover, the imperial court relied on Hanlin Academy scholars to compile official records, a prestigious duty that filled scholars with pride. Additionally, Hanlin Academy offered an alternative path. The 6 ministries, particularly the Ministry of Personnel and Ministry of Revenue, were staffed by individuals transferred from Hanlin Academy. To ascend to higher positions within the government and become heads of departments, one needed to undergo training at Hanlin Academy. Throughout the history of the Qin dynasty, every minister without exception hailed from the 6 ministries of Hanlin Academy, proceeding through the Ministry of Personnel before entering higher echelons of power. Though the odds of becoming a court leader were slim, admission to Hanlin Academy undoubtedly presented an opportunity, right? And due to this slim chance, officials within the 6 ministries were cautious about offending those from Hanlin Academy. After all, one could never predict the future. What if the person they offended today became the prime minister tomorrow? Or what if someone with whom they maintained good relations rose to the position of first secretary? Unless it was a matter of life and death, there was no need to stir up trouble unnecessarily. Hence, Hanlin Academy held a unique and significant position within the entire bureaucratic structure of the capital. Lin Hanlin, currently a 6th-ranked servant, held a rank higher than Xiao Yunduan and exhibited commendable performance. He had promising prospects, potentially advancing to become a 5th-ranked servant or even joining the esteemed 6 tribes for further training. Madame Lin took great pride in her husband's accomplishments and held a prominent position among the wives of the officials at Hanlin Academy. Officer Lin, originally not from the capital, had dedicated 10 years of service at Hanlin Academy. Due to limited income, he had been unable to afford a house for a long time. In the earlier years, he faced significant hardships. However, 2 years ago he received a substantial reward, allowing him to rent a decent living space. The banquet was hosted in this modest courtyard. Xianxia arrived at an opportune moment. As the wife of the Primus, she no longer carried the same audacity she had possessed when she assumed the role of Primus. She now identified herself simply as Mrs. Editor. Xianxia understood her place very well. Upon her arrival at the Lin household, she presented the gifts and greeted everyone with politeness. By this point, Xianxia had already discerned that the banquet might not unfold favorably. The gifts she brought included 2 pieces of fine Hangzhou silk, 2 pieces of inkstone of equal quality, and 2 boxes of renowned Xianxia's pastries from the capital. The pastries encompassed a total of 8 varieties, accompanied by 2 boxes of high-quality preserves, each consisting of 8 different kinds. This present was very generous among the women from the Hanlin Academy. The silk alone cost 5 liang. The Lin family was not a rich family, and Xianxia should have been very happy to receive such a generous gift from them, as if she were visiting a senior. Madame Lin should have treated her well too. But Xianxia observed carefully. Madame Lin was very happy, and she smiled brightly when she saw the presents. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 997. Good Helper. However, the entire process didn't last long. Soon enough, her smile faded, and she rose from her seat. Xianxia comprehended the situation clearly. Madame Lin deliberately neglected to introduce the other madams to Xianxia. Xianxia wasn't someone to be easily manipulated. If Madame Lin refused to introduce them, Xianxia would make the request with a polite smile. Reluctantly, Madame Lin finally introduced them to her. Regardless of whether the other madams avoided her or treated her with fake smiles, Xianxia remained indifferent. All she needed was to know who they were. Madame Lin had invited numerous guests for the occasion, including 12 women from Hanlin Academy and the 6 ministries. The living room of the Lin household was filled with bustling noise, comprising both maids and elderly women. Xiaoyunduan, as one of the 6 advanced scholars who had recently joined Hanlin Academy, had 3 wives accompanying him. Madame Zhou and Madame Han, the new wives of the officials, harbored strong hostility towards Xianxia. Although they were not well acquainted with each other, this shared sentiment brought them closer, engrossed in their own conversations and laughter. Their disdain for Xianxia only deepened. Xianxia, who had been treated as a mere tool, could only sigh inwardly. The women chatted and laughed among themselves, purposefully ignoring Xianxia. It seemed they had no interest in engaging with her, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Xianxia had never intended to involve herself with them. Neither she nor Xiaoyunduan needed their approval. With the emperor's support, they wouldn't dare to make trouble, regardless of their dissatisfaction. After all, Censor Lu had been dismissed, and no one would risk making jests about their husband's future. They rarely associated with each other, and their presence had minimal impact on Xiaoxian's life. She had no intention of ingratiating herself with individuals she knew had ill intentions. That was simply the nature of their social circle. Unless they willingly accepted someone, forcefully entering their ranks was an arduous task. Furthermore, it was evident that the circle held a dislike towards her. "Oh, Mrs. Xiaoxiao, why are you so quiet? Come and join our conversation," one of the madams suddenly remarked, accompanied by a smile. All eyes turned towards Xianxia. She is the wife of the Primus, and she's quite exceptional. It's no wonder she doesn't find us appealing. Someone sneered. The comment wasn't particularly loud, yet it resonated with everyone present. Another person chimed in, laughing brightly, "Well, that's not entirely accurate. Times change, and the concept of honor and humiliation can fluctuate. We ought to see what the future holds. 10 or 20 years down the line, we'll have a clearer understanding." Everyone nodded in agreement. Indeed, being adept at studying doesn't guarantee proficiency in the role of an officer. Throughout history, there have been numerous advanced scholars who ascended to positions of power. Yes, success hinges not only on examination results, but also on genuine talent and character. Absolutely. If one lacks integrity, everything else becomes a facade. In my view, having a virtuous spouse is crucial. Laughter erupted among the gathering. That's right. We need a virtuous spouse to support us. A harmonious marriage is the key to avoiding trouble. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 998, Pretending. Xianxia smiled in response. Indeed, a good wife should refrain from speaking nonsensically and avoid causing unnecessary trouble. It is often the tongue that creates problems. Engaging in idle chatter is not worth the trouble. That's the wisdom I've acquired, isn't it? Her words caught everyone off guard, and the expressions on 3 or 4 individuals' faces changed abruptly. They exchanged bewildered glances. They had marginalized Xianxia and spoken ill of her, believing she was meek and foolish. In their eyes, she had merely put on a facade of composure. Little did they know that within her, she was already crumbling. As they looked down upon her, their envy grew. How could Primus Xiao, who had spurned the prestigious Tian family and rejected elder Miss, choose such a timid and foolish concubine's daughter? Unexpectedly, she had been pretending to be weak all along. Each word she uttered cut like a sharp blade. Madame Tian, known for her temper and seniority, seemed to assert her dominance. She sneered and aggressively addressed Xianxia. "That's not a trivial matter, Mrs. Xiao. Your modesty has surprised us all. But couldn't you speak with a bit more decorum? You should show respect to the host, shouldn't you? Madame Lin has been so gracious to us, and you wouldn't want to spoil the atmosphere and dampen everyone's spirits. What could be the reason behind your behavior? I know your husband is highly capable, and the emperor supports him. However, that doesn't give you the audacity to disregard others' feelings, does it? I speak my mind freely, and am not even afraid if you get angry and report me." They exchanged glances, surprised by Madame Tian's obstinacy. Most of the other madams were aware of Madame Tian's hot temper and her penchant for putting on airs. She always sought praise wherever she went and enjoyed lecturing others with a sense of righteousness. Due to her husband's position as a 5th-ranked scholar, the second in command at the Hanlin Academy, everyone accorded her respect. Over time, her arrogance only grew. Unexpectedly, Madame Tian was causing a scene once again. The other madams felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. How would Mrs. Xiao respond? Xianxia was taken aback. Yes, she had been mocking Madame Tian. What was wrong with that? After all, they had all been mocking her. She could sense that Madame Lin must have been influenced by the Tian family. Some of the attendees had ties to the Tian family or harbored jealousy towards her. Xianxia smiled calmly. I thought Madame Tian was praising me, but apparently that's not the case. However, I am uncertain as to what I have done wrong. Please enlighten me, Madame Tian. Madame Tian's face contorted in anger. It had been years since anyone had contradicted her so boldly in public. She cast a disdainful look at Xianxia and sneered, "You don't even understand your own actions. It's because you're slow-witted, despite having read so many books. I am not obligated to teach you anything. You don't need to teach me anything either. Xiang, if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 999, Apology. She stood up and declared, "Inform Madame Lin that I am taking my leave." Giving Xianxia a disdainful glance, Madame Tian made it clear that she had no desire to associate with her. Madame Lin happened to be in the kitchen, and Xianxia nodded before leaving to deliver the message. The other madams became anxious, attempting to dissuade Madame Tian. "Madame Tian, please reconsider. I'll be so dull without you." "Yes, it's such a rare gathering. Isn't it enjoyable to chat and laugh together? Mrs. Xiao is still young and inexperienced. Madame Tian, You possess magnanimity. Please calm down. Mrs. Zhou turned towards Xiaoxian. Mrs. Xiao, apologize to Madame Qin. Smugly, Mrs. Han chimed in. Indeed, just apologize, and Madame Qin will forgive you. Don't you want to preserve the harmony of this gathering? Mrs. Zhou and Mrs. Han, both envious of Xiao Yunduan's equal ranking with their husbands, were eager to seize this opportunity. The rest of the madams nodded in agreement, expecting Xiaoxian to offer an apology. It appeared as though Xiaoxian was the one in the wrong. In that moment, Madame Lin arrived, wearing a smile. Mrs. Xiao, Madame Qin is a senior figure whom we should respect, isn't that right? Apologizing to Madame Qin would be the appropriate course of action. It would be regrettable if she were to leave. Xiaoxian felt a surge of disgust, as though she had swallowed a fly. Were these the wives of the Hanlin Academy? What were they thinking? She found herself being pressured to apologize, with even the host, Madame Lin, speaking up. Respecting the host was necessary, wasn't it? Xiaoxian began to make an assumption. If she were to apologize, it would imply that she was immature, unruly, and lacked understanding of what was appropriate. It would be seen as her first guest appearance resulting in offense, raising concerns about her morality. If they chose not to apologize, they would be perceived as ignorant and obstinate, unaware of what was good for them. Their husbands being Primus gave them a sense of arrogance and entitlement, making them unreasonable and disrespectful towards their seniors and even the host. In essence, whether she apologized or not, she would be labeled as a person of questionable character. Even Xiao Yunduan wouldn't be spared from that judgment. Xiaoxian struggled to contemplate her next move, but tears wouldn't come. She covered her face and sobbed. What have I done wrong? I simply expressed that as wives, we shouldn't engage in idle gossip like market women. What harm would it cause our husbands? What's so wrong about that? Madame Zhou and Madame Han keep insisting I'm in the wrong, but I fail to understand why. She turned to Madame Lin, grasping her sleeves, and lamented, Madame Lin, you are the judge. Tell me, am I wrong? If you dare to say I'm wrong and consult my husband about this, let it be known that I will come to your doorstep and beg for forgiveness. Everyone present. Some astute individuals began to feel a sense of caution. Mrs. Xiao was not someone to be taken lightly. It was no wonder even the Tian family had faced her wrath. They concluded that it would be best to steer clear of her in the future. Madame Qin pursed her lips, growing even more infuriated. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1000, Exposure. Madame Lin was at a loss for words. Well, Xiaoxian didn't give her a chance to think. She tugged at her sleeves. Mrs. Lin, am I wrong? Madame Lin had no choice but to shake her head. You are right. I knew Mrs. Lin is a very understanding person. Xiaoxian looked up at Mrs. Zhou and Mrs. Han. Mrs. Zhou, Mrs. Han, tell me, what did I do wrong? Should I apologize to you? What would be the point? Mrs. Zhou and Mrs. Han flushed with embarrassment. Madame Lin had just informed them of what Xiaoxian said, and now Xiaoxian was interrogating them. They couldn't counter Madame Lin's statement, and they had no choice but to remain silent. Annoyance began to well up within them towards Xiaoxian. As a couple, they felt even more humiliated in front of the gathered guests. They weren't as quick-witted or as audacious as Xiaoxian. Panic set in, leaving them dumbfounded and unable to utter a word, as beads of sweat formed on their foreheads. Madame Han snapped, her voice filled with anger. So many people have said that Mrs. Xiao is trying to drag us into her grudge. Xiaoxian almost burst into laughter, inwardly cursing at Madame Han's foolishness. She wasn't about to let go of this opportunity. She responded instantly, Mrs. Han, what are you talking about? I only heard the two of you speak. No one else said a word. Mrs. Han, please point it out. All eyes turned to Madame Han with disapproval. Madame Han was taken aback, realizing she had misspoken. Her face flushed with embarrassment, feeling deeply humiliated. You're up to no good, Madame Han exclaimed. Xianxia responded with curiosity, "Of course, I am up to no good. Mrs. Han, you spoke those words of your own accord, without any coercion from me. I am merely following your lead. If you don't wish to answer me, I will pretend I never heard anything. You are accusing me without any valid reason, and it's quite perplexing." Mrs. Han's eyes widened, her lips quivered, and her face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. How delightful! The others couldn't bear the situation any longer. It had become incredibly embarrassing for Mrs. Han. If given the chance, she would have loved nothing more than to tear Mrs. Xiao apart. They all sighed inwardly, realizing that Mrs. Xiao was not someone to be trifled with. Editor Xiao was a Primus, and he couldn't be foolish enough to offend the Tian family just to protect his wife. Mrs. Xiao couldn't possibly be an idiot. Even Madame Qin grew weary of the situation. She had a sense that she couldn't afford to provoke this woman, so she abandoned the idea. It would be immensely embarrassing if her attempts to confront Xianxia backfired. Concerns about her husband's position and Xianxia's temper had made everyone yield to her demands in the past, and she was well aware of that fact. Now, they realized they had kicked a hornet's nest. "Well, never mind," Madame Min forced a laugh and tried to appear relaxed. "I believe it's just a misunderstanding. We are all friends here, and we will be spending a lot of time together in the future. We can discuss things calmly, there's no need to be so serious, right?" A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, and everyone nodded with forced smiles. Madame Lin expressed her gratitude to Madame Min and smiled. "It's entirely my fault as the host. I haven't served you properly, please forgive me. Let's have some more tea and continue our conversation. We'll have dinner soon, and we can enjoy a pleasant chat afterward. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1001, Famous. Everyone smiled and shifted the conversation to a different topic. Madame Lin instructed the maids to bring more tea and snacks, greeted everyone, and headed to the kitchen to check on the progress of the dishes. Madame Qin, who had intended to leave, was convinced to stay and returned to her seat. Madame Han's face was still flushed with embarrassment, but she didn't want to leave on a sour note. It was her first invitation from her husband's wife, after all. Casting a sharp glance at Xianxia, she reluctantly sat back down. Even Mrs. Zhou felt a sense of unease. She made a silent promise to herself to never interfere in others' affairs again. Xianxia had gained a newfound reputation after this confrontation, and even Madame Qin couldn't help but view her in a different light. Xianxia carried herself with even more confidence than before. Eventually, a couple of madams exchanged pleasantries with her. Xianxia reciprocated the greetings. Many of those who had initially planned to ridicule Xianxia decided to drop the idea after witnessing her resilience. No one wanted to be embarrassed in return. 3 women bargaining in a market turned into a gathering of over 10 women engaged in lively conversation. Although their husbands held modest positions, and Madame Qin's husband was only ranked 5th, he possessed extensive knowledge about the noble families, princes, kings, and monarchs. Madame Qin was thrilled to engage in discussions on such topics. They shared stories about conflicts between concubines in the household, which young masters kept mistresses and clashed with their first wives. They delved into discussions about fashion, jewelry, cosmetics, and various hobbies. They also shared information about stores offering affordable items, expensive snacks, and the trickiest department stores to navigate. Xianxia was captivated by the gossip, despite not fully understanding the context. The sudden mention of the Empress Dowager's peony piqued her curiosity. One of the women continued, "I heard that the peony withered just a few days ago." The news spread like wildfire within the palace walls. The emperor's anger was so intense that he punished the eunuchs responsible for the imperial garden. He even issued a decree that anyone in charge of the garden would be buried with the peony if it died. The tension in the palace is palpable, and everyone is walking on eggshells, afraid of incurring the emperor's wrath. Gossip related to the royal family always held a special allure, and Madame Qin, too, was captivated by the story. Is this really true? Are you certain? It must be true. My cousin has close ties with the 7th young mistress of Lord Jian's 3rd household, and she's the one who shared this information with me. She wouldn't spread false rumors. It does sound plausible. During the Empress Dowager's lifetime, she had a deep affection for peonies. The emperor himself personally planted a peony for her, symbolizing their mother-son relationship. The Empress Dowager personally cared for it while she was alive. Even after her passing, the emperor would visit the peony and reminisce about her. If the peony were to wither, the emperor would undoubtedly be infuriated. The women exchanged intrigued glances, engrossed in the tale of palace intrigue. They all sighed. Those gardeners in the imperial garden are so useless. They can't even take care of one flower. True. If they can't be saved, then the palace? Just drop it. Right. So the gossips soon turned to the topic on which princess in the palace was favored and whether she would be selected next year. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1002, Protection. Xianxia was not in the mood to listen anymore. She was thinking about peony flowers. That was just gossip for others, but for Xianxia, it was a temptation that she could not give up. If the peony flowers were really so precious, and if she could save them, the emperor would definitely be very happy. Also, no one knew what would happen to the peony flowers in the future, so no one would dare offend her at all. What if she was harmed, and the peonies went wrong in the future, and the emperor could not find anyone to save them? Then the culprit would definitely be investigated thoroughly. In that case, the culprit would definitely be doomed when found out. That was totally a protecting amulet for herself. She and Xiao Yunduan had no one to rely on in the capital, and the Tian family hated them for no reason. If they had such a strong supporter, they would have nothing to worry about. The more Xianxia thought about this, the more excited she got. Of course, it was not easy to make a big deal out of this. If the treatment failed, it would be a disaster. But Xianxia still wanted to have a try. They had to take a huge risk to get the benefits. Xianxia did not care about the banquet anymore. Xiaoxian's relentless pursuit of information about the peony flowers paid off as the madam willingly shared more details. She couldn't help but be intrigued by Xiaoxian's genuine interest and straightforwardness. Meanwhile, Madame Lin and her 2 friends had initially planned to embarrass Xiaoxian during the banquet, but her unexpected confrontation had foiled their scheme. They were now apprehensive about getting involved further, fearing retaliation from Xiaoxian. In an attempt to undermine her, one of them had discreetly arranged for a plate of quail eggs, hoping to trick her. However, Xiaoxian's sharp senses enabled her to detect the potential trap, and she skillfully avoided it, leaving the others hesitant to make any further attempts. Despite the tense atmosphere earlier, the meal proceeded smoothly, and everyone enjoyed themselves. Once the guests departed, Madame Lin took stock of the presents received. To her surprise, none of them compared to the valuable gift presented by Xiaoxian. This mixture of happiness and annoyance stirred within Madame Lin as she pondered the implications of Xiaoxian's extravagant offering. It was customary for a first-time visitor to bring more gifts, but this particular gift was exceptionally valuable, leaving Madame Lin with conflicting emotions. They were relieved to have benefited from the gathering, but they also felt concerned about Xiaoxian's potential inability to explain her extravagant gift. However, a maid came up with a clever solution, suggesting that they assist Xiaoxian in promoting her status. Madame Lin found the idea quite brilliant and smiled approvingly. "You're quite clever. That's a wonderful suggestion." Many of the officials at the Hanlin courtyard were financially strained, with some even living in cramped shared housing. Each winter, they had to resort to pawning or borrowing money just to make ends meet. If word spread that Mrs. Xiao was wealthy and generous, it would pique the interest of these officials, who would undoubtedly seek financial assistance from her. Considering that Editor Xiao was new to the area and had incurred the displeasure of the Tian family, maintaining a low profile was crucial. However, if he ever found himself in need of being asked to loan out money to those officials, he would definitely have to do so. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1003, Offence. She couldn't help but lend out the second and third, considering she had already lent out one. Even if they had borrowed the money, their reluctance to return it was evident. They continuously postponed repayment. Could they audaciously demand someone else to return it? Such actions would undoubtedly offend numerous individuals. The Tian family had deliberately targeted them, seeking opportunities to find fault. It was an effective strategy. Mrs. Lin's worries had dissipated. She engaged in a conversation with the maid on how to spread Xiaoxian's reputation. Meanwhile, Xiaoxian couldn't stop thinking about the peony ever since she returned home. After dinner, she inquired with Xiao Yunduan if he had any information about it. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Yunduan nodded with a smile. A few days ago, I heard some news about it. Xiaoxian's face lit up and she asked eagerly, "What is happening? Please enlighten me, husband." Xiao Yunduan felt somewhat helpless. He attempted to recall the details and conveyed them in simple terms. Just as Xiaoxian had mentioned, the peony held great spiritual significance for the late Empress Dowager, which made it incredibly valuable to the emperor. No one within the palace dared to make even the slightest noise about this matter. Everyone understood that failure to safeguard the peony would result in someone within the palace facing dire consequences. It was uncertain whether it would implicate the consorts, princes, and princesses. After all, the emperor's wrath was not an exaggerated claim but a harsh reality. Xiao Yunduan's heart skipped a beat, and he instantly became alert when the thought of Xiaoxian saving the orchid given by Xie Jingrong crossed his mind. He looked at her with concern and asked, "Why are you inquiring about this? Do you believe you can handle it? It's too risky." Xiaoxian knew he wouldn't agree, so she had planned to proceed secretly without informing him. To her surprise, he had already contemplated the matter after gathering some information. Deciding not to conceal her intentions, she took hold of his sleeve and gently shook it. "Darling, sometimes you have to take risks to achieve something great. I don't want you to take such a risk. Don't talk like that." Xiao Yunduan was torn between amusement and frustration. Did he really have to rely on her to venture into the lion's den? Nevertheless, while this task might be extremely challenging for others, I am 80% confident in my abilities. It's worth giving it a try. Xianxia, no. If it were any other family, you could go ahead if you wanted. Even if it failed, it wouldn't have grave consequences. But this involves the royal family. The emperor is infuriated by this matter. All the court officials, princes, and consorts are on edge, fearing that the emperor will unleash his anger upon them for no apparent reason. Right now, others can't wait to keep their distance, and yet you dare to approach him? Not even 99%. Have you considered the consequences if he fails? Have you thought about what the emperor might do? Failure could cost him his life. His words resonated with Xiaoxian, leaving her feeling both hesitant and moved. However, she couldn't bring herself to give up. "My love, this opportunity is like a rare gift bestowed upon us. If we let it slip away, we will surely regret it. Can't you trust me just this once? If I didn't have confidence, why would I be willing to take such a risk? I must go. Help me find a way to achieve a compromise, but please don't outright reject me. Don't you realize that Madame Lin is hosting an event in my honor today? Those wives of Hanlin scholars and low-ranking officials are intentionally ridiculing and isolating me. I simply cannot tolerate this humiliation." Xiao Yunduan furrowed his brow. "What did they do?" Xiaoxian smiled. "It's nothing more than petty and somewhat amusing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1004 A Way. There will be numerous future gatherings, both large and small. I can't simply avoid attending them. I have to take action. Can you truly bear to let me miss out on such a wonderful opportunity? My love, please help me. Xiao Yunduan remained silent, contemplating his options. What was he going to do? He regarded Xiao Xian with suspicion, questioning whether her claims of being bullied were true. Why hadn't he realized it earlier? Nevertheless, when he heard her plea, he couldn't find the strength to refute her or bear to do so. Xiao Yunduan let out a sigh. Xiao Xian understood that he had agreed. She immediately brightened up. My love, you're the best. I knew you would assist me. Xiao Yunduan. Tell me honestly, how confident are you? He asked. Xiao Xian's smile faded, and she responded earnestly, I can't say for certain, but am at least 80% confident. An 80% chance was almost as good as a guarantee. Xiao Yunduan found himself torn between amusement and frustration. After a brief pause, he suggested, let's visit the Crown Prince at the East Palace tomorrow. The Crown Prince is known for his benevolence. Let's hear his thoughts first. All right, let's go and seek the Crown Prince's support. Xiao Xian's remaining worries vanished. Xiao Xian harbored no concerns about her ability to save the peony. As long as the flower remained alive, she believed she had the power to revive it and enhance its vibrancy. It was Xiao Yunduan who felt breathless with anxiety. After all, the events had unfolded within the palace walls. How could they possibly know what was happening? However, if the Crown Prince was willing to provide insight, then there was hope. The Crown Prince would surely be aware if the peony bush was still alive. Xiao Xian had heard of the prince's benevolent nature and hoped that he would grant Xiao Yunduan, a mere Primus, some face. With the Crown Prince's assistance, Xiao Xian would be secure. But if the Crown Prince declined, Xiao Xian would relinquish her pursuit. The following day, Xiao Yunduan sought leave from the Hanlin Academy, and together they made their way to the East Palace to meet the prince. Although referred to as the East Palace of the Great Qin Empire, it was, in fact, a separate mansion adjacent to the palace, not within its confines. Not just anyone could enter the Crown Prince's Eastern Palace. However, Xiao Yunduan's reputation was too prominent. Despite being only a 7th grade editor at the Hanlin Academy, he was the top scorer. He had even confronted the Tian family head-on, and the emperor had intervened on his behalf. It wasn't just the Eastern Palace. The more influential a residence, the more meticulous they were in selecting their gatekeepers. The position of a gatekeeper was not one that could be entrusted to a mere servant. A single offense, mistake, or unauthorized entry could potentially lead to a disastrous outcome. Upon Xiao Yunduan's introduction, a polite greeting came from the gatehouse. Coincidentally, the Crown Prince happened to be present within the mansion, and someone hurriedly went to inform him. The current Crown Prince was not the offspring of the current Empress Qi. The biological son of Empress Qi was the 3rd prince, who had recently turned 30. The Crown Prince's biological mother was the late Emperor Xian of Qi's Empress Li. Having held power for a considerable duration, Emperor Xian of Qi's reign saw the Crown Prince reach the age of 43 this year. He was known for his integrity, refinement, and gentleness, earning him a reputation as a virtuous individual among the people. The court officials were indeed respectful and deferential toward him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1005 at the East Palace. Upon learning that the renowned editor Xiao from the Hanlin Academy had arrived with his wife, the Crown Prince was taken aback. After a moment of contemplation, he instructed them to be brought in. During an imperial court session, his father had mentioned that if editor Xiao encountered any difficulties, he could seek assistance from him or the princes. Since they were here, it would be inappropriate not to meet them. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan followed a young eunuch through a long corridor and several courtyards, finally arriving at a small, exquisitely adorned parlor. Seated on the main chair in the hall was a middle-aged man donning a ginger-colored round dragon collar robe. His eyes exuded gentleness, elegance, and nobility. It was evident that he was the Crown Prince. Xiao Yunduan promptly approached and performed a kowtow. The crown prince smiled and raised his hand in a gentle gesture. Rise. Have a seat. Thank you, crown prince. Xiao Yunduan stood up and attempted to assist Xianxia in getting up. However, when he turned to her, he was taken aback. Xianxia seemed lost in her thoughts. Xiao Yunduan grasped her arms and whispered, "Wife, wife." He called her multiple times, gradually raising his voice. Eventually, Xianxia snapped out of her reverie. Startled, she apologized, "Please forgive me." "It's all right, rise." The crown prince remained affable and harbored no ill feelings. The crown prince held a simple understanding of the situation. He considered that Miss Qiao was a sheltered woman who had not experienced much of the world. It was natural for her to feel nervous and lose her composure upon seeing him. Being a magnanimous and benevolent individual, the crown prince harbored no blame for such a minor incident. Xianxia expressed her gratitude, yet her legs remained weak. Xiao Yunduan, filled with suspicion, believed that her unease was due to nervousness, much like what the crown prince had assumed. He cast a concerned gaze her way and helped her find a seat. The crown prince observed the entire scene and inwardly sighed. His fondness for Xiao Yunduan grew stronger. Xiao Yunduan displayed loyalty and did not forsake his wife. It appeared that he was not merely seeking fame. He genuinely cherished his wife. Sincerity or not, certain details could not be feigned. Unbeknownst to both of them, as Xianxia knelt to greet the crown prince, her mind buzzed with fleeting images of him. Perhaps due to the prince's esteemed status, those images were not as distinct as the other two, but Xianxia was certain they depicted the crown prince. Furthermore, if all of this was indeed true, the crown prince did not ascend to the throne in the end. It appeared that his fate had taken a turn for the worse. Xianxia felt a pang of regret. Her heart skipped a beat upon witnessing that scene, and then the images swiftly vanished. If only she had known earlier, she would have exercised control over her thoughts and observed more. However, what she had glimpsed was sufficient to shock Xianxia and weaken her legs. She compelled herself to push those thoughts aside and regain her focus. Fortunately, the crown prince did not hold them accountable for the momentary lapse. Yet, the weight of the crown prince's grim fate weighed heavily on Xianxia, causing her to feel a sense of suffocation. The crown prince gazed at the couple and inquired with a gentle smile, "Editor Xiao, why have you come to see me?" Xiao Yunduan and Xianxia exchanged glances and were about to rise and respond when the crown prince interrupted, "Please remain seated. There is no need for formalities in my presence." "Yes, thank you, Your Highness." "Your Highness, I heard that there has been an issue with the peony flowers in the palace. It is quite coincidental. My wife possesses expertise in cultivating and preserving flowers and trees. Perhaps she could find a way to save them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1006, Am Willing to Try. Xianxia bowed respectfully and stated, "Your Highness, I am willing to make an attempt." Upon hearing Xiao Yunduan mention the peony flowers in the palace, a shadow crossed the crown prince's eyes. Although Xiao Yunduan referred to them as peony flowers, it was evident to everyone what specific peony flowers he was alluding to. The crown prince harbored no desire for the royal family's affairs to become public knowledge. A tinge of disgust toward Xiao Yunduan flickered within him. However, the crown prince's demeanor changed upon hearing Xiao Yunduan's words. "What did you just say?" His brows furrowed, a mix of anger and amusement dancing in his eyes. "It's all right if you say such things in front of me, but let's pretend I didn't hear it. Remember not to utter a word about this outside. Matters concerning the royal family should not be taken lightly, understood?" Xianxia spoke up, "Your Highness, I am willing to attempt it." The crown prince fell silent, studying Xianxia intently before speaking with seriousness. "Do you comprehend the gravity of what you are suggesting? Even the most skilled and experienced gardener in the palace has been unable to tend to the flowers. Mrs. Xiao, where do you find the confidence to believe that you surpass them?" Xianxia and Xiao Yunduan felt a sense of relief. The crown prince possessed a benevolent heart, as evidenced by his persuasive words. "If I may be so bold, may I inquire, Your Highness, whether the peony flower is completely lifeless?" Xianxia asked. The crown prince furrowed his brow, giving her a brief glance before responding, "Not yet, but the situation is far from favorable." "That is good," Xianxia responded. "As long as it has not completely withered, I am willing to give it a try. During my time in the province, I managed to revive an orchid for the Xie family, so I do have some experience in this field." Xianxia provided further explanation to the crown prince. Understanding dawned upon the crown prince, and he nodded. He was aware of the Xie family as well. The eldest son of the Xie family was a remarkable individual, and the crown prince held great admiration for him. With this knowledge, the crown prince's confidence in Xianxia grew. After contemplating for a moment, he spoke, "How about this? Tomorrow, or perhaps even today? Do you require any preparations?" Xianxia hurriedly replied, "I am prepared and ready. We should not delay any further." The crown prince nodded, placing even greater trust in her. "In that case, I will have the crown princess consort accompany you to the palace today. You may first inspect the flowers. If you succeed in curing them, the crown princess consort will report it to father, and you can openly attend to them. However, if it proves futile, do not utter a word and simply leave the palace with the crown princess consort." Touched by the crown prince's consideration, Xianxia and Xianxia stood up and expressed their heartfelt gratitude. Deeply troubled by what she had witnessed, Xianxia couldn't help but feel a sense of unease about the future. She pondered whether paying more attention to those visions could have the power to alter the course of events. Following the crown prince's instructions, Princess Consort Fu did not object. She instructed Xianxia to disguise herself as a maid and accompany her. Together, they made their way to the imperial court. The news of the peony flower predicament had caused quite a stir in the court. It was only natural for the crown prince and princess consort to show concern for the flowers, thus justifying Princess Consort's visit to the court. Upon entering the court, Princess Consort sent her maid to greet the queen and informed her of their intention to visit the flowers in the imperial garden. Leading Xianxia, they proceeded towards the imperial garden. Within the imperial garden, a vast expanse of peonies flourished, featuring a variety of exquisite and rare blooms. The cluster of flowers held immense value and was even enclosed by white jade railings. Carefully tended to by dedicated gardeners, every precaution was taken to prevent any mishaps. The winter frames provided warmth, while the summer shade offered a cool respite. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1007. She trusts Princess Consort. Unexpectedly, an unforeseen incident occurred, adding to the already tense situation. At this moment, not only was the entire peony garden off-limits, but the entire imperial garden was deemed a forbidden area. The emperor was seething with anger. Who would dare to venture into the imperial garden at such a time? Did they have a death wish? Only the queen, noble consort May, princess consort, and a select few noble family members dared to display their concern for the peonies in the imperial garden. No one else possessed the qualifications to show such concern. Accompanied by her attendants, Princess Consort arrived, and the two eunuchs who appeared visibly distressed immediately prostrated themselves, bowing deeply. Acknowledging their presence, Princess Consort turned to Dao seeking and inquired, "Where is Qin gone?" Respectfully, the young eunuch replied, "Princess Consort, Master was here just moments ago." He went back to retrieve something. The hearts of the two young eunuchs were heavy, yet they dared not reveal their sorrowful expressions in front of their master. They kept their heads slightly lowered. The gardeners responsible for tending to the flowers and trees in the imperial garden had exhausted every possible method, but the flowers continued to wither day by day. They were unsure how much longer they could persevere. Within the Qianxing Palace, a group of individuals arrived each day to apply pressure and conduct interrogations. However, it was a flower, a living entity incapable of speech. How could it convey discomfort? What could a flower do? If it couldn't be healed, then it couldn't. However, the stakes were high. If they couldn't find a solution, none of them would be able to escape the consequences. Princess Consort nodded and casually found a pretext to dismiss the others, then turned to Xian and asked, "Take a look and see if there's a remedy." Xian could sense that the peony flowers still clung to life. Although their condition was dire, there was still hope. Xian carefully inspected the roots, adopting a professional demeanor. In truth, she couldn't be certain if it was due to pests, soil issues, or some other factor. But as long as the plant itself was resilient and provided with sufficient soil, water, and sunlight, there should be no insurmountable problem. After pretending to examine for about 15 minutes, Xian rose to her feet and addressed Princess Consort with a confident smile. "Princess Consort, I can indeed nurse these peony flowers back to health. However, time is of the essence. If we delay for another 4 days, even divine intervention may prove futile." Princess Consort's eyes lit up and she cautioned, "Are you absolutely sure, Miss Xiao?" Think carefully before answering. If you succeed in saving the flowers, even without my intervention, you will be greatly rewarded by the Emperor. However, if anything goes awry, not only will you be in trouble, but Editor Xiao and I will also face dire consequences. Xian's confidence shone through her smile. "Thank you for your concern, Princess Consort. Rest assured, I am fully confident in my abilities." "Very well." Princess Consort sighed with relief and nodded. "Then come with me to meet the Queen." "Yes, Princess Consort." Empress Qi felt a surge of joy upon hearing the news. Although she didn't fully trust Xian, she had faith in Princess Consort's judgment. If Princess Consort had brought Xian to her, it meant she had confidence in her abilities. Accompanied by Princess Consort, Xian was personally taken to Emperor Xian, where she was instructed to begin her treatment. News of this event quickly spread throughout the palace, capturing the attention of numerous eyes fixated on the peony garden within the imperial grounds. The crown prince had always been dependable, and this brought a sense of relief to the concubines, princesses, as well as the palace maids and eunuchs, who secretly awaited a favorable outcome before expressing their elation. The emperor's foul mood had cast a pall over everyone, inducing trepidation. Finally, the clouds were starting to disperse. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1008, Treatment. Qin and the others formed a circle around Xian, anxiously awaiting her intervention to save the flower. Aware that they might be attempting to steal her knowledge, Xian made it clear that she would only share the maintenance method without guaranteeing its long-term effectiveness. Flower nurturing, like any other craft, required personal exploration and cultivation. It couldn't be easily taught. Each individual had to rely on their own efforts to comprehend it. Xian possessed limited knowledge herself, so she refrained from providing extensive instruction. They wouldn't be able to replicate it on their own. It wasn't that she wanted to withhold information, but rather, she had to do so. Sooner or later, the Queen and Princess Consort would issue the order. After all, who could assure that the flowers would remain in good health in the future? What if something unfortunate happened again? Xian couldn't be expected to attend to them within the court indefinitely. Apparently, Qin and the others understood this as well. Upon hearing Xian's words, they wore expressions of naturally, without a hint of gratitude. Contrarily, they felt a tinge of unease. They weren't certain whether they hoped for Xian's success or failure in saving the flowers. A conflicted sentiment arose, leaning towards preserving the flowers. Although doing so would highlight their incompetence, at least their positions and livelihoods would be preserved. If Mrs. Xiao failed to save the flowers, they would all face dire consequences. Xian directed someone to dig out the flowers, replacing the soil and trimming the roots. After 2 hours of exposure to sunlight, she removed all the withered parts and replanted them. Then she watered them and arranged for a shade to be built. Following a series of procedures, evening approached. Is that all? Qin En and the others exchanged bewildered glances. Xiao nodded confidently. Tomorrow, you'll see an improvement. Don't worry. The group remained speechless. Concerned, the Empress dispatched her trusted attendants from the palace to guard the imperial garden. Observing Xiaoxian's dramatic actions, Princess Consort couldn't help but inquire anxiously as they left the court. Xiaoxian offered a reassuring smile. Princess Consort, please don't worry. I have great confidence in this. With a smile, Princess Consort sighed. Well, we have no choice but to trust you. News of Xiaoxian's presence in court to treat the flowers quickly spread among the princes, nobles, and upper class of the capital. Even before she had left the palace, word had already reached various ears. Doubt pervaded the minds of many. Some even secretly mocked editor Xiao for involving his wife in such matters. Could it be that his wife's skills in tending to flowers and plants surpassed those of the specialized palace gardeners? It would be comical if she overstepped her abilities. Madame Tian felt even more disgusted. Madame Lin's attempt to teach Xiaoxian a lesson backfired. Instead, it was Xiaoxian who reprimanded the entire room, leaving Madame Tian fuming with anger. Seething with resentment, Mrs. Tian contemplated how she could humiliate Xiaoxian, when suddenly she heard the news. Madame Tian sneered, unable to contain her derision. She ridiculed Officer Tian, saying, "This woman truly has no sense of her own status. She can't even rise above her station. Yet, she dares to engage in such menial tasks, going to the palace to snatch work from the eunuchs. How utterly laughable." Officer Tian glanced at her, remaining silent. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1009, Easy. Aware of his wife's anger and complaints, Officer Tian couldn't help but caution her, "Don't speak such nonsense in public." Madame Tian's expression darkened at his words. After a brief pause, she snorted and sneered, "There are so many inept individuals out there. I refuse to believe she can handle it well. If she messes up, it will be quite the spectacle." Once Xiaoxian finally emerged from the court, Xiao Yunduan, who had been waiting outside, heaved a sigh of relief. They exchanged glances, and Xiaoxian nodded with a smile, instantly relieving Xiao Yunduan's anxiety. "Is it a success?" he asked incredulously. Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but question the sheer magical turn of events. Many had been at a loss when faced with the same problem, and even the crown prince had treated it as a major issue. Yet, his wife had resolved it effortlessly without uttering a word. Too easy. He couldn't flaunt it so arrogantly, knowing how much others would struggle. Xiaoxian smiled. Different professions exist in different worlds. While others might not understand, you know me. Their eyes met, and Xiao Yunduan burst into laughter. Indeed, how could he not know? His wife had a green thumb. Back at home, crops, fruit trees, and even the vegetables in their garden thrived under her care. She had made significant contributions. The peony flowers in the palace were merely another type of plant. What couldn't she achieve? He had to believe in her. "You must be exhausted from your time in the palace today. Let's go back and rest early." "All right." 2 days later, the rewards from the palace arrived. The Empress attendants immediately noticed the rejuvenation of the flowers. The once yellowing leaves were no longer deteriorating. Instead, fresh new foliage sprouted forth, and the stems exhibited a healthy fading of color. Furthermore, the flowers emitted a different aura than before. Standing before them, one could sense the dense vitality pulsating within. Though it hadn't fully regained its former splendor, a unanimous thought echoed in everyone's hearts. This peony bush is on the road to recovery. Emperor Shen of Qi was overjoyed. He commended the accomplishment several times over. This peony bush held the deepest connection and yearning between him and his late mother. Even after all these years, he never ceased to think of her. It was his mother's most beloved peony flower, which she had personally nurtured. Each year, he would accompany her in admiring its blossoms. If it were to perish just like that, the void in his heart would never be filled. Officer Xiao is truly the exceptional individual I believed him to be. I did not misjudge him. I never anticipated his wife to possess such remarkable talent. I must bestow upon them generous rewards. Empress Qi's smile widened. When Princess Consort brought Ms. Xiao to see me that day, I noticed her elegance and grace. She displayed no trace of fear and possessed a temperament that rivals that of a true noblewoman. Who could have imagined her remarkable capabilities? Women often indulge in cosmetics, pets, and flowers, but finding someone like Ms. Xiao is rare indeed. The emperor recollected his encounter with Xiao Xian the other day. While he hadn't paid much attention to her at the time, he was not one to shy away from recognizing merit. With a nod and a smile, he remarked, "Editor Xiao, you have good taste." Empress Qi's smile grew even brighter. Ms. Xiao healed the flowers, bringing joy to the emperor's heart and mine. I wish to reward her as well. Emperor Xian of Qi burst into laughter. You should give the rewards as well. It is a reflection of your filial piety. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1010, Reward. The flower held immense sentimental value for the former Empress Dowager, and Emperor Xian of Qi's recognition was well placed. Empress Qi playfully teased him, bringing an even greater smile to the emperor's face. Soon, the rewards arrived at the Xiao family's residence. They received 20 bolts of exquisite brocade, 300 liang of gold, and a pair of rui scepters adorned with gold and jade. The emperor's rewards were typically modest, making it quite exceptional for him to bestow such lavish gifts upon foreign ministers. Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian expressed their gratitude with kowtows and accepted the gifts humbly. Shortly after, rewards from the empress, noble consort Mei, consorta, and concubine Wan also arrived. The empress presented them with a complete set of magnolia-patterned clothing embellished with pearls, along with 2 handcrafted palace fans. Noble consort Mei gifted them a pair of jade bracelets and pearl earrings. The other concubines contributed with various pieces of jewelry or playful trinkets. As the empress and the imperial consort had given their rewards, the other concubines naturally followed suit. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan received a multitude of valuable rewards. With these precious pearls and vibrant embroideries, they were set for a lifetime. In any future banquets or gatherings, Xiao Xian would surely be the envy of all. Even the residences of many marquises and earls, who were already in decline, paled in comparison to the splendor and dignity they now possessed. Initially, the knowledge about the flowers was limited, but now the news had truly spread far and wide. Upon seeing Xiao Yunduan, the Hanlin Academy workers approached him, offering their congratulations with folded hands and beaming smiles. Regardless of their personal thoughts, they all wore expressions of joy and camaraderie. Xiao Yunduan's emotions were not complex. Comparing his wife to theirs, the difference was stark. Was it because he held the esteemed position of Primus that his wife possessed such remarkable abilities? TSK, now they understood why editor Xiao would rather face the Tian family's wrath than divorce his wife. His wife had made such a monumental contribution. Who would dare to provoke her? With the emperor's generous rewards, as well as those from the empress, other princesses, and the crown prince, the 300 taels of gold alone would allow editor Xiao and his wife to live a luxurious life in the capital for several years. The scholars from the Hanlin Academy were known for their modest means. But look at editor Xiao now. Madame Lin and the others who had gathered that day were feeling dejected, envious, and resentful. Xiao Xian was an audacious woman who seemed to disregard the rules. How could she be so fortunate? It was exasperating. Particularly the lady who had shared the information about the 8 trigrams of peony flowers in the court. Xiao Xian must have heard the news from her when she went to the court the next day. And there she was, reaping all the credit without saying a word. The more she dwelled on it, the more she seethed with indignation. She believed she deserved a portion of the credit no matter what. Unable to contain herself, she confided in her husband. He too felt envious and furious. He couldn't help but admonish her, "Don't speak of this matter outside anymore. The ancients were right when they said the more you talk, the more mistakes you make." If that weren't the case, he wouldn't allow others to benefit unjustly. That editor Xiao had grown so well respected that even the chancellor regarded him in a different light. Who among the officers would dare to provoke him? Especially Xiao Hongxi, who would actively avoid him whenever they crossed paths. The lady was also filled with frustration, so she couldn't resist the temptation to visit the Xiao family's mansion and direct some biting remarks at Xiao Xian. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10-11. Luck? She was insinuating that without her, Xiao Xian would have been unaware of this information and wouldn't have made any contribution. Xiao Xian found himself both irritated and entertained. He hadn't intentionally sought this information from her, nor had she purposely shared it with him. She was merely flaunting her knowledge and treating it as gossip. The reason he paid attention was that the person who uttered those words didn't mean them, but the person who overheard them did. Furthermore, she would have to rely on her own abilities to make significant contributions. Moreover, she would be taking a substantial risk. If he succeeded, she would receive recognition for her valuable assistance. However, if she failed, Xiao Yunduan's future would be destroyed, and she might even lose her life. She couldn't simply assume it was a stroke of luck. Ultimately, in this person's eyes, it was all because of her help that he succeeded. Of course, Xiao Xian didn't deny that he received the information from her. Since she had approached him, he could offer her some benefits. However, she shouldn't feel indebted to him. Xiao Xian smiled and remarked, "I was merely fortunate. In truth, I wasn't certain before entering the court. I simply want to inquire, if I had heard the news from my sister and informed her that I could cure the peony in the court, would you have been willing to accompany me to the East Palace?" The madam was rendered speechless in an instant. Although she wanted to say yes, she couldn't bring herself to do so under Xiao Xian's intense gaze. She was absolutely certain that if Xiao Xian had approached her with the same proposition, she would have rejected it without hesitation. What a ridiculous idea! Who would dare to take such a risk? It would be all well and good if she succeeded, but what if she failed? How could she be certain of Xiao Xian's abilities? What if there was no solution? Wouldn't he be implicated because of her? This was definitely insufficient. Xiao Xian smiled knowingly. The lattice face turned crimson, and she felt a tinge of embarrassment creeping in. Xiao Xian's words made her feel slightly ashamed. Xiao Xian paused her actions and spoke with a smile. "The other day, I consulted my husband about this matter, and he informed me. That's why I dared to come to the East Palace to meet the Crown Prince. However, I must acknowledge that I initially received the news from you. Otherwise, I might not have come across it from other sources. I should express my gratitude to you, sister." The madam was left speechless, unable to refute her words. Not many individuals were privy to this information, but it wasn't entirely undisclosed. Xiao Xian could have learned about it from another source. Consequently, all the resentment and the sense of being owed by Xiao Xian, along with the obligation to express gratitude and make amends, vanished. Upon hearing Xiao Xian's words, she felt a sense of relief. Besides being delighted, she was also grateful. With a smile, she said, "Sister, you are truly kind." Xiao Xian modestly smiled and insisted that she stay for lunch, presenting her with a generous gift. The lady bid farewell happily and headed home. Once they arrived, they eagerly opened the gift box. Inside, they discovered 2 exquisite garments and a banknote worth 100 liang. This unexpected windfall brought immense joy to her heart. She couldn't help but inwardly sigh. Miss Qiao was no ordinary woman. With just a few words, she had rendered her speechless and granted her enough respect to prevent any animosity. Well, Let bygones be bygones. In the future, she should strive to grow closer to her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10-12. It's all for me. She had a strong intuition that getting closer to Xian would be beneficial, not a loss. As for the Qiao family and the Tian family? Definitely not. Xian didn't need to ponder over it to realize that. They weren't the only ones. Even noble consort Mei, residing in the palace, felt a sense of ennui. Xianxia was her own niece, and witnessing her endure such grievances pained her deeply. Initially, she believed that Xian had taken the initiative to marry Xiao Yunduan, resulting in Xianxia losing her opportunity. In her eyes, Xian wasn't worthy enough to even lace her shoes. However, she never anticipated that Xian would be praised and rewarded by the emperor and the queen. Listening to the empress' words, claiming that Xian possessed dignity and magnanimity, and was in no way inferior to a legitimate daughter. What did she mean by that? Wasn't she openly and covertly targeting Xianxia? To put it bluntly, they were indirectly talking about her. Nevertheless, since the empress had rewarded Xian, noble consort Mei had no choice but to begrudgingly follow suit. The mere thought of it left her feeling incredibly stifled. Noble consort Mei couldn't let it slide. She urged her son, the fourth prince, to teach Ms. Qiao a lesson, no matter what. Xiao Yunduan didn't have to lift a finger, but Ms. Qiao couldn't escape so easily. Otherwise, Xianxia would be left in utter misery. Moreover, by dealing with Xian, it would be a way to slap the queen's face. Contemplating the queen's remarks about Xian, noble consort Mei couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. The fourth prince was also growing restless. Editor Xiao had escorted Ms. Qiao to meet the crown prince. Over the past couple of days, his father had been heaping praises upon the crown prince, emphasizing his kindness and filial piety, which had left an impression on the fourth prince. He had clearly sent someone to establish a connection with Editor Xiao and extend goodwill, but Editor Xiao feigned ignorance and rejected his father's kind intentions. Instead, he turned around and sought favor with the crown prince. It was truly despicable. Given the circumstances, the fourth prince didn't mind teaching Editor Xiao a lesson. Weren't they on the verge of leaving the capital to return to their hometown for ancestral rites? Once they departed, there would be ample opportunities. Soon enough, Hanlin Academy withdrew Xiao Yunduan from his position and instructed him to return to his hometown for the ancestral rites. That was precisely what Xiao Yunduan desired, so he departed from the capital alongside Xian. As the Primus, he was returning to his hometown to pay respects to his ancestors. Following the established protocol, the Ministry of Rites arranged for an escort of honor, horses, and guards. A grand procession of over 30 individuals embarked on their journey. The Ministry of Rites had provided for the expenses of the trip, relieving Xian and Xiao Yunduan of any concerns. However, the allocation provided by the Ministry of Rites was just sufficient, leaving no room for surplus. On the day of their departure from the capital, Xian handed 500 liang to the manager responsible for the logistics, instructing him to enhance the quality of everyone's meals and accommodations throughout the journey. Additionally, each individual received a red packet containing 10 liang. Initially, the members of the escort team had reservations about undertaking such a demanding task. However, now they expressed their gratitude wholeheartedly. They took great pride in escorting the Primus back to his hometown for ancestral rites. Although the imperial court had dispatched personnel to accompany them, it was unlikely that any bandits or troublemakers would dare to rob or cause trouble along the way, unless they had a death wish. Everyone had absolute confidence in their safety. Any individual foolish enough to lay a hand on the Primus or the officials from the imperial court was effectively signing their own death warrant. However, Xian remained vigilant and cautious. Whenever they traversed through remote regions, she would employ her heightened senses to scan the surroundings within a radius of 500 or 600 meters. She also conducted periodic checks of their surroundings. For Xian, It was merely a reflex that occurred whenever the thought crossed her mind. It was not a futile effort. Developing such a subconscious habit proved beneficial and provided a sense of security. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:13. Actually, it's all like this. All the precautions and vigilance proved to be worthwhile. To Xianxia's surprise, one day while passing through a narrow canyon after entering the Zheng state, she encountered individuals with malicious intent. Behind a mountain rock, dozens of individuals lay in wait, their faces concealed by masks. They donned worn-out combat attire, with some wearing tattered head coverings and others having disheveled hair and dirt-streaked foreheads. Their appearances were reminiscent of a group of mountain bandits. However, that was far from the truth. Xian overheard their conversations, and with each passing moment, her heart sank deeper and her anger intensified. They weren't genuine bandits. Instead, they were trusted guards dispatched by the fourth prince. Their purpose was to exact revenge for Tian Xianxia. At that moment, Xian recollected that the fourth prince was elder Miss Tian's cousin. It was only natural for a cousin to stand up for their kin. Yet, it was the Tian family who had initiated the conflict. And now, they sought to engage in further violence, bloodshed, and injustice. While not everything in this world could be reasoned with, this was an outrageous act. Listening to their jests and boasts, it became apparent that their intention was to rob and harm Xianxia, both in terms of his wealth and his well-being. They decided to lead Xianxia away, leaving tracks for them to follow. They would allow them to chase after her, buying enough time for Xianxia and the others to come to her rescue. But she couldn't make it too easy for them. They would pretend to put up a struggle for Xianxia, as if she were no match for her assailants. This would give her comrades the opportunity to save her. However, she couldn't emerge unscathed. Her clothes had to be torn, her hair disheveled, and one shoe missing for added authenticity. As the group continued their crude banter, their obscene remarks growing more repulsive, Xianxia's anger intensified. Despicable, vile, treacherous, and wicked. These people were truly despicable, and the fourth prince was no exception. Xianxia activated her powers, manipulating the vines to dislodge rocks and soil from the cliff above. As the dozens of individuals reveled in their conversation, saliva flying, a sudden cascade of rocks startled them. They screamed in terror, scattering in all directions, their initial enthusiasm replaced by panic. "Let's move away. It's dangerous, hurry up." Xianxia sneered silently. Leaving? Never. There was a price to pay for one's foul mouth. Xianxia activated her superpower again, and the vines around them moved nimbly, tripping all of them and making them scream. Some ran too fast and fell heavily, some sprained their legs, some were hit by rocks that rolled down the cliff, or some fell on the thorny bushes. In short, there were screams and wails everywhere. It was not easy for this group of people to return to the nearby village and town safely, let alone stop somewhere and rob them. Only then did Xianxia withdraw her superpower. Her group passed through the canyon unscathed. But that was not the end of it. When she went to the capital again, she would definitely find an opportunity to get back at him. That fourth prince seemed so free, right? She was going to get him busy. They would spend the night in Lingzhou and travel before dawn the next day. If they hurried along the way, they would be able to return to the province before sunset tomorrow afternoon. When they returned to the province, they would be able to return home the day after tomorrow. The two of them could not conceal their excitement. Xianxia looked at Xianxia with a very bright and deep look. He had even offended the Tian family for her sake. She should be able to see clearly how he treated her and never feel any worries. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:14. Embarrassed? Since that was the situation, they decided to consummate their marriage. While they were still in the capital, Xiao Yunduan asked Xian when they would consummate their marriage. Xian was taken aback and nearly fled in fear. She didn't want to escape, but Xiao Yunduan caught up to her swiftly. Despite his seemingly gentle demeanor, he gradually pressured her without giving her any room for ambiguity. Her face turned red, and she felt anxious. Eventually, she reluctantly nodded in agreement, but a consummation of their marriage was not appropriate within the capital's confines. The bustling city demanded their attention with numerous responsibilities. Xiao Yunduan had to remain vigilant every day, unable to find peace. It was better to postpone such a matter. Moreover, she wasn't truly prepared for it. Xiao Yunduan was well aware of this, but if he didn't push her, he might have remained single for the rest of his life. After returning to Xiaoding village, he would wait. He had waited patiently for so long. Waiting for a little over a month wouldn't make a difference. He had done everything he could, and she had no choice but to agree. Setting aside everything else, how could she be so shameless? Therefore, since their departure from the capital and passing through the state of Zheng, as they drew closer to their hometown, Xiao Yunduan would gaze at Xian with tenderness and a smile, causing her to feel guilty and uneasy. She wished she could pretend not to understand the meaning behind his gaze. Unfortunately, she couldn't. She understood it in an instant. Most importantly, he knew that she understood his intentions at a glance. As they drew closer, Xian grew increasingly flustered. Xiao Yunduan found amusement inwardly but maintained a composed demeanor, as if nothing had happened. Observing this, Xian became even more nervous. Since it was still early, Xiao Yunduan suggested they take a stroll together and have dinner outside before returning to the inn. Coincidentally, they nearly ran into County Magistrate Qiao and Madame Qiao, who were on their way to the capital. As County Magistrate Qiao's entourage passed by, they began searching for an inn to stay at. Sensing their presence, Xiao Yunduan and Xian quickly hid, wanting to avoid meeting County Magistrate Qiao's family at this time. When Xian noticed their family entering a medium-sized inn not far away, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of excitement. I really want to follow them. Most importantly, concubine Xing was not faring well. Dealing with that woman was no easy task, and witnessing her confrontations with Madame Qiao would certainly be interesting. Xiao Yunduan smiled. It's not very convenient. Just endure it for a while. We'll see them in the capital. True. Imagining the reactions of County Magistrate Qiao and Madame Qiao upon learning that the Qiao family had severed ties with them, they couldn't help but exchange smiles. Especially after learning how the Emperor protected Xiao Yunduan and Xian, praising them for their contributions to the Empire. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:15, So Angry. Her father, who was solely focused on climbing the ranks and driven by greed, must have been seething with anger. Wait, the news of Xiao Yunduan's promotion to intermediate Primus must have spread like wildfire, right? Her despicable father and Madame Qiao must have been filled with anxiety upon hearing the news. Indeed, that was exactly the case. County Magistrate Qiao had no knowledge of the misdeeds committed by his mother and two brothers. However, when news of Xiao Yunduan's promotion reached the county, he couldn't contain his excitement, sporting a constant smile. With concubine Xing's praises about Xiao Yunduan, County Magistrate Qiao's joy knew no bounds. This was his son-in-law. If his son-in-law became an intermediate Primus, he would feel immense pride. Moreover, the timing was perfect for his return to the capital. As the father of an esteemed Primus, he could seize this opportunity to gain more attention, forge valuable connections, and perhaps even stumble upon unexpected benefits. Fueled by concubine Xing's persuasion, County Magistrate Qiao made up his mind to return to the capital, paying little heed to Madame Qiao's condition. Madame Qiao was infuriated. The news of Xiao Yunduan's promotion stirred a storm of anger within Madame Qiao. So, what had she accomplished? Xiao Xian's former fiancé had passed the examination, while her true husband had ascended to the position of intermediate Primus. What had Madame Qiao achieved by attempting to ruin Xiao Xian's marriage? That despicable concubine Xing even had the audacity to praise Xiao Xian as a fortunate woman, and the old master seemed to agree. Madame Qiao loathed her even more, and her health, which had been improving, took a turn for the worse. Xiao Wei's anger only fueled Madame Qiao's growing irritation, leaving her with a profound ache in her heart. Auntie Ling offered comforting words to Madame Qiao. So what if Xiao Yunduan is the Primus and second Miss is the wife of the Primus? They will still have to show you respect. I hold filial piety in high regard, so let's see if they dare to be unfilial. If Madame declares them as such, second son-in-law will lose his position. I doubt they would dare to defy that. Madam, you must take good care of yourself. As long as you're present, they won't be able to cause any trouble. Madame Qiao felt slightly reassured. That's right. Xiao Yunduan had obtained an official position, and he couldn't afford to disregard filial piety, or else he would risk losing his position. Xiao Xian would be taught a lesson if she dared to challenge Madame Qiao. Surprisingly, Madame Qiao let out a sigh of relief and resolved to regain her health. She wanted to live a long life and make trouble for Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan. However, before she could act, concubine Xing and Officer Qiao caused her further trouble. Officer Qiao suggested leaving Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei behind to recuperate while they returned to the capital first. Madame Qiao grew annoyed once again. Of course, she refused and insisted on accompanying them. On that day, she coincidentally encountered Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian, who were returning to pay respects to their ancestors. However, they were unaware of Madame Qiao's presence. The following day, before dawn, Xiao Xian, Xiao Yunduan, and the others set off. Their journey went smoothly, and they arrived at the province before sunset. The establishment of the new Primus ceremonial entourage naturally drew attention in the province. The magistrate's office promptly responded and warmly welcomed the group, inviting them to rest at the courier station. While Xiao Yunduan entrusted Xianxia with delivering greetings to the Xie family, he himself went to meet the magistrate. He displayed politeness and good manners, greatly pleasing the magistrate. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:16, Province. The prefectural magistrate went out of his way to show hospitality, ordering a lavish spread of food and inviting several junior officials and prominent figures from the local government office to warmly welcome them. Although Xiao Yunduan held the rank of a 7th-grade official, his potential for a promising future was evident. Being a capital official, he naturally commanded more respect than local officials. Furthermore, as the province's primus, he brought pride to the magistrate, who was more than willing to extend him courtesies. The magistrate had initially intended for his wife to entertain Xiao Xian, but Xiao Yunduan graciously declined, informing him that Xiao Xian would be visiting First Madam instead. Therefore, the plan was abandoned. Word had spread throughout the province about Xiao Yunduan's ascent to the position of Primus. First Madam, Yuezhing Xiao, and Xie Jingrong were all filled with joy for his achievements. First Madam couldn't help but feel envious. She scolded Yuezhing Xiao, "I no longer aspire to be the Primus, but being recommended man would make me proud. At least she would be proud of me." Upon hearing this, Yuezhing Xiao's scalp tingled, and he quickly made an excuse to leave. Upon learning that the Primus had returned to pay respects to his ancestors, First Madam was contemplating the veracity of the news. She was about to send someone to gather more information when Xiao Xian arrived at her doorstep with Li Xia and Li Qiu. First Madam was elated and personally greeted her. Xiao Xian felt a warm connection with First Madam, as if they were mother and daughter. Xiao Xian also paid a visit to Madame Yuezhing, presenting her with a gift. Madame Yuezhing was equally delighted and engaged her in a friendly conversation. Madame Yuezhing had to admit that the Qiao family had a knack for making friends. Upon arriving at First Madam's residence, Ms.Yan welcomed them warmly and engaged in pleasant conversation. When Xiao Xian distributed rewards, The entire household of First Madam and Ms. Jean shared in the happiness. Since Xian was staying at First Madam's residence, she joined them for dinner. During the meal, Xian shared stories about the capital and the sights she had seen. Afterward, she confided in First Madam about the incident involving the Tian family. Ms. Fong had no knowledge of this matter, and she lacked female elders to seek advice from, except for First Madam. Upon hearing Xian's account, First Madam was taken aback and became worried for her. Her palms instinctively came together, and she chanted, "Truly, it's a blessing from the heavens. A blessing indeed. You are incredibly fortunate." Xian blushed and modestly replied, "I don't consider myself that lucky, especially since I am only an intermediate." First Madam sternly interrupted, "How dangerous could it have been? Thankfully, Primus Xiao has a conscience. Otherwise, if he had allied with the Qiao and Tian families in the capital, you would have been left vulnerable and defenseless. That would have been exceedingly perilous." Xian was startled, realizing the gravity of the situation. Initially, she hadn't given it much thought, but now, she couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Forced to smile, she said, "It appears I am indeed fortunate. I didn't misjudge my husband." First Madam smiled and affirmed, "Absolutely. I dare say there are very few men like Primus Xiao in the entire country. That's why I say you're lucky. However, the two of you don't have a solid foundation. Your father and mother have already entered the capital. When you return, trouble is bound to arise. Additionally, the Tian family may not be willing to let the matter rest. You must make plans in advance and remain vigilant. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 10:17 Shame. Our family may not have a business in the capital, but we do have good friends there. I will send you a letter later with their information. If you encounter any difficulties, you can seek their help. Do you need more money? When you return, I will give you tens of thousands of taels extra. It will come in handy when you reach the capital, and if you face any financial constraints, you can turn to my friend for assistance." Xian was deeply moved and replied with a smile, "Auntie, we have sufficient funds, but if we ever fall short, we will not hesitate to ask for your support." First Madam smiled warmly and said, "That's wonderful. There's no need to be formal with me. Just come to me whenever you need help. I don't believe the Tian family will dare to cause trouble for you in the near future. However, we cannot guarantee that they won't secretly instigate your parents to cause trouble. Primus Xiao's reputation is crucial. If by any chance things take a turn for the worse, remember to plan carefully and avoid impulsive actions. If the Tian family discovers any leverage against you, they will undoubtedly exploit it to cause trouble. Primus Xiao's career might be affected. Since the Emperor holds Primus Xiao in high regard and you have made significant contributions, you should not have to rely on anyone. It's important to maintain your integrity. If you find yourself backed into a corner, you must be reasonable. And if there's no other choice, you can seek assistance from the Crown Prince. In short, we must be cautious and tactful. We need to have clever strategies and adaptability. Money should not be a major concern." First Madam was deeply concerned for Xian and kept reiterating her advice. Xian nodded earnestly, taking it all to heart. In hindsight, she felt a sense of shame. After smoothly winning 2 rounds, she had become somewhat arrogant, thinking that it was all manageable. Little did they know how wrong they were. So what if the Tian family lost? They would find a way out, or someone would create one for them. But for Xian and Xiao Yunduan, it was a different story altogether. They knew they wouldn't have another opportunity. If they failed, their reputation would be ruined, and their lives could even be at stake. Therefore, they had to remain on high alert and couldn't afford to be careless. It was already late at night when Xian finally left First Madam's residence and returned to the station. She promised to come back and stay for a few more days once they returned to the capital. The following day, Xiao Yunduan set off for home, so he didn't drink much during the evening gathering. He arrived back after Xian had returned home, They chatted for a while, and as they were about to go to bed, Xiao Yunduan suddenly smiled at Xian. Wife, in 4 days, it will be an auspicious day. Yawning, Xian opened her eyes in confusion. What? Are you planning to host a feast for the villagers on that day? Sure, we can do that. Xiao Yunduan chuckled and shook his head. No, my dear. It's an auspicious day for a wedding, my wife. Xian was taken aback, and her face instantly flushed. She instinctively touched her face and turned inward without saying a word. Xiao Yunduan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He couldn't help but hold her shoulders and give her a gentle squeeze. Darling, did you hear me? Xian couldn't help but smile, her lips curling up involuntarily. She replied softly, yes, good. Xiao Yunduan chuckled and released her, taking a step back with a silent smile. He couldn't wait any longer. Since they were leaving the next day, they needed to meet Yuezheng Xiao and Xie Jingrong and return home first. During this time, the days felt long, and the nights were short. The group didn't stay in the county city and instead headed back to Xiaoding village. They had already sent people back to the village to tell the news. When they arrived, they saw that the entrance of the village was filled with villagers welcoming them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:18 Greeting Mr. Primus. Xian and Xiao Yunduan were taken aback by the overwhelming enthusiasm of the villagers. They had expected a warm welcome from their family, but they were surprised to see the entire village mobilized in such a grand manner. While they were not individuals driven by fame or fortune, the sight before them ignited a spark of excitement in their hearts. They exchanged glances, their smiles reflecting the joy they felt. Xian playfully teased Xiao Yunduan, "Look at you, Mr. Primus, commanding such admiration. No wonder scholars aspire for glory. Such acclaim is truly something to behold." Xiao Yunduan smiled in response, his eyes filled with pride. "It is your deserved honor as well." Xian's heart fluttered at his words, their love and support for each other shining through their smiles. The villagers, brimming with excitement, eagerly called out as they spotted Xian and Xiao Yunduan approaching. "Here they come. Mr. Primus has returned. Our esteemed Mr. Primus has graced us with his presence. Let us welcome our esteemed Mr. Primus. We must ensure that Mr. Primus receives a grand reception." The villagers couldn't contain their joy, their faces lighting up with anticipation. They gathered around Ms. Fong, eldest uncle, the land officer, and a few revered elders of the village. Approaching the group, they bowed respectfully, their voices filled with reverence. "Greetings, Mr. Primus. We bow and pay our respects. We humbly greet Mr. Primus." The sudden turn of events caught Ms. Fong, eldest uncle, and the others off guard. Their expressions showed a mix of surprise and anxiety, unsure of how to respond to such an exuberant display. Yang Xiaoni was stunned and subconsciously knelt down. Xiao Sanlang. Witnessing this, Ms. Su hesitated for a moment before deciding to join them in kneeling. Xiao Yunduan and Xian were dumbfounded by the sight before them. "No!" they exclaimed simultaneously, quickly stepping out of the carriage and rushing forward. Xiao Yunduan assisted the land officer to rise, while Xian helped the female elders to their feet. Calling out, "Dad, Mom," she addressed Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni, caught between laughter and tears. "Sister-in-law, third sister-in-law, please stand up. This is unnecessary." Upon seeing her two daughters-in-law kneeling, Ms. Fong grew infuriated. "What are you doing? Eldest son, third son, have you lost your minds as well?" Xiao Delang and Xiao Sanlang swiftly helped their wives to their feet. Yang Xiaoni chuckled in embarrassment. "Oh, my legs simply gave out. I saw everyone else kneeling, so I followed suit." Laughter filled the air as the tension dissipated. The family elders shared in the mirth, wiping away their tears. They then proceeded back to the village with Xiao Yunduan, while Xian accompanied the esteemed female family elder and Ms. Fong. The villagers gathered around, joining the celebratory procession as they returned to the village. The gates of the ancestral hall swung open, and Xiao Yunduan, accompanied by the land officer, entered to pay their respects, offering kowtows and incense as a means of conveying the auspicious news to their ancestors. Afterward, they made their way back home. Due to the suddenness of the news, preparations had been made hastily. Fortunately, the spacious first section of the Xiao family could accommodate the influx of guests, and every room was filled with joy and celebration. Xiao Xian and Ms. Fang instructed the servants to prepare tea for the elders and arranged for the ceremonial team to temporarily settle in Xiao Zioki's yard, ensuring they had provisions and seating arrangements. Meanwhile, Xiao Yunduan swiftly took charge of the cooking duties. With an array of meats available, he quickly set up 2 tables. However, the kitchen alone was insufficient, so he sought assistance from their generous neighbors. Just as Xiao Xian was about to join in the cooking process, Ms. Fang and Ms. Su intervened. No, you don't need to do this. 5th sister-in-law, please return to your room and rest. 3rd sister-in-law and I will handle it. Xiao Xian was taken aback, only comprehending the situation after a moment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1019, Still a Family. Ms. Fang said with a smile, "You are the wife of the Primus and the official's wife now, so you are not allowed to do such menial work. You are making them lose their lifespan. Go and rest." Xiao Xian. However, she couldn't help but find it amusing. Bursting into laughter, she replied, "Don't worry, Mom, I will cook 2 dishes for my husband and 2 dishes for my parents. Besides, I need to eat too." What? Ms. Fang was delighted to hear Xiao Xian's response. She thought her daughter-in-law was sensible and filial, and with her by her son's side, she had nothing to worry about. It's rare for you to be so filial, but you don't have to go through the trouble today. Rest for a bit. You can be filial to your parents any other day. They won't miss a meal with Yun Duan around. Feeling touched, Xiao Xian smiled and said, "Mom, since you care about me, I will listen to you." All right. Now go and rest. Your sister-in-law and 3rd sister-in-law's culinary skills may not be as good as yours, but they've improved. I'll have them send you some food later. I'll ask Li Xia and Li Qiu to help. They can send it over later. Xiao Xian smiled at Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni and said, "Sister-in-law, 3rd sister-in-law, we're family, so please don't treat me like an outsider. Let's maintain our close bond just like before." Observing Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni's respectful but somewhat helpless expressions, and hearing Ms. Zu's hesitant "you," Xiao Xian felt a bit uneasy. She didn't want there to be any distance between them. Since arriving in this world, she had acquired superpowers, wealth, a husband, and her relationship with her in-laws was also good. All she wanted was for everyone to remain close and continue living happily. That, to her, would be the ultimate perfection and happiness. She was not that petty. They were not arrogant just because they had obtained the power. Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni were startled. Yang Xiaoni smiled embarrassedly. Can this work? 5th sister-in-law, you're now the wife of the Primus and the wife of an official. Xiao Xian burst into laughter. Am I still the 5th sister-in-law? Yang Xiaoni nodded dumbly. Xiao Xian tried not to laugh. Well, as long as I am still your 5th sister-in-law, we will be the same as before. This really works? Sure. All right, let's listen to 5th sister-in-law. Yang Xiaoni chuckled and looked much more relaxed. Ms. Su nodded with a smile, looking relaxed. Xiao Xian was still resting in her own yard when Ms. Su, Yang Xiaoni, Tao Tao, Li Xia, Li Qiu, Ms.Yan and a few other women helped her to make a meal. Xiao Yunduan and eldest uncle were eating with the land officer and the elders, and 3 tables were set up at the ceremonial team. Xiao Delong and Xiao Sanlang greeted them. Xiao Xian did not eat in the yard, but stayed with Ms. Fang and the others somewhere else. After dinner, the land officer and the elders chatted with Xiao Yunduan and his son for half the night before they left happily. From the next day onwards, the house became a hub of liveliness. Relatives and friends arrived in a continuous stream, creating a bustling atmosphere akin to revolving doors and musical chairs. Xianxia found herself occupied for 5 to 6 days before finally getting a moment to catch her breath. When the auspicious day arrived, the family head led Xiaoyunduan to pay respects to their ancestors. To celebrate, the first branch of the Xiao family hosted a grand banquet, extending their warm hospitality to the villagers. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1020, Home Party. After the long-awaited banquet finally came to an end, the Xiao family let out a collective sigh of relief. Everyone was overjoyed, yet completely exhausted. It had been a challenging journey, but they could finally bask in peace and tranquility, allowing themselves to rest properly. The banquet had attracted not only the villagers but also numerous relatives, friends, local dignitaries, former classmates, and others who came to extend their congratulations. Even the newly appointed county magistrate made a special appearance, accompanied by his grandmaster, to personally convey his good wishes. Impressed by the occasion, Xiaoyunduan requested the county magistrate to escort them to the county, generously offering him a gift of 300 liang. The Xiao family's humble abode was not spacious enough to accommodate such a large gathering, and Xiaoyunduan and Xiaoxian preferred to spend the next few days in the company of their family rather than amidst the crowd. Furthermore, there was little to do in the village, leaving them with a sense of boredom. The sum of 300 liang would sustain them comfortably in the county office for well over a month. Grateful for the newfound serenity, Ms. Fang urged Xiaoxian to organize and arrange all the presents that had been bestowed upon them during the event. Although these gifts were meant for Xiaoyunduan, Ms. Fang refrained from interfering, allowing Xiaoxian to make the decisions herself. Ms. Fang's selflessness was evident, as she had no intention of claiming anything for herself. These were rewards earned by her son, and as his mother, she wholeheartedly supported his rightful ownership. Xiaoxian acknowledged her mother-in-law's sincerity and felt a deep conviction in her trustworthiness. In any other scenario, someone might have seized the opportunity for personal gain. However, Ms. Fang's integrity and maternal love made it impossible to resist her intentions. Xiaoxian smiled in response and, with the assistance of Tao Tao, Li Qiu, and Li Xia, dedicated an entire day to sorting through the gifts and meticulously recording each one. Then, Xiaoxian invited Ms. Fang to take a look at the gifts. The total sum amounted to an impressive 8,688 liang, consisting of 8 screens, each with its unique characteristics. One was made of exquisite rosewood, another intricately carved with crystal, and the third adorned with embroidered 6 jade halls. Among the presents were also 80 pieces of silk and satin, each distinct in its design and texture. Additionally, there were porcelain items, jade artifacts, purple copper, wood carvings, and an array of various decorations. Not to forget, there were calligraphy and paintings as well. Perplexed, Ms. Fang smiled and remarked, "As farmers, we have no need for these items. Even if we were to select the most suitable ones, we couldn't possibly make full use of them. Choose some valuable ones from the province and bring them along to the capital. They may come in handy there. Give a portion of the remaining silver as taxes to the government, and keep the 8,000 taels. You'll find plenty of use for the silver when we reach the capital." Xiaoxian nodded in agreement and proceeded to enlighten Ms. Fang about the value of the various items, ensuring she wouldn't make any mistakes when presenting gifts in the future. Afterwards, Xiaoxian requested 6,000 liang from Xiaoyunduan. Xiao Delong, San Lang, Tao Tao, and the others also received their share. Although Qi wasn't present, his portion was set aside, while the rest was added to their shared savings. Following a discussion with Ms. Fang, Xiaoxian carefully selected some clothes, packed them up, and distributed them to Xiao Dalong, Xiao Sanlang, Qi, Tao Tao, and others. Tao Tao's gift was particularly valuable and exquisitely crafted, making it suitable to be preserved as a future dowry. The servants had worked hard these few days, so they were rewarded heavily as well. This time, everyone was happy. It was a family dinner tonight, and Xian was going to cook a good meal for everyone. That made everyone so happy that they took the initiative to help Xian as if it were the new year. While they were happy, everyone could not help but think of Qi and sigh sadly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1021. Cooking. If only Qi were at home too. Qi would undoubtedly bring back the best game from the mountains and take everyone to the river to catch the plumpest, freshest fish. That would be wonderful. Regrettably, they had no knowledge of which military camp Qi was stationed in the northwest. How was he faring? Did he endure hardships? Did he long for home and his loved ones? The uncertainty of his return weighed on their minds. Despite missing him dearly, they were all mature individuals who understood that while Qi served in the army, Xiao Yunduan was flourishing with the assistance of the Xie family. Qi himself was capable and resourceful, so they refrained from dampening the festive atmosphere with worries. They continued to chat and laugh, cherishing the joyous occasion. The fish and prawns in the Zhang village pond were plump and abundant, prompting Xian to have someone catch numerous prawns, a turtle, and 2 fish. In the evening, she would prepare crispy shrimp balls, braised chicken nuggets, clear soup fish balls, beetle taro pork, sweet-skinned duck, crispy chicken, mutton soup, tofu, sour soup, stir-fried bamboo shoots, garlic lettuce, and silky yams. As the dishes took shape, the 3 stoves simultaneously burst into action. The kitchen emitted waves of tantalizing aromas that awakened everyone's appetite. During dinner, delectable dishes adorned the table. Everyone gathered happily, engaging in conversation while savoring the flavorsome feast. Their taste buds were captivated. Finally, 5th sister-in-law's culinary skills. 5th sister-in-law is an exceptional cook. No matter how hard we try, we can't match her. It's incredibly delicious. Truly mouth-watering. Xian was also delighted, sporting a smile. Now that I'm back, I'll cook more often, and our ingredients will always be readily available. I'll visit regularly. She had so much to attend to, how could she possibly leave? Without the assistance of her extraordinary abilities, it would be inconceivable. Upon hearing Xian's declaration, Yang Xiaoni and the others were filled with joy and eagerly inquired if it was true. Xian responded with an affirmative nod and a warm smile, bringing a sense of relief to everyone present. Xiao Yunduan exchanged a glance with Xian and chuckled helplessly. He had already discussed this matter with his wife. It was simply impossible for him to return home every year, let alone multiple times throughout the year. However, Xian was concerned about her family and their assets. If she were to come back, she would make appropriate arrangements along the way. Anticipation filled the air, enhancing the lively atmosphere at the dining table as everyone enjoyed their meal. With a loving expression, Ms. Fong beamed with joy. They were truly a united family now. It was the greatest gift of all. After dinner, the group engaged in pleasant conversation for a while before retiring to their respective rooms for a well-deserved rest. Xian, who had been weary from the recent events, was grateful for the chance to finally get some proper sleep. In the courtyard, Xiao Yunduan stood with his hands behind his back, gazing up at the radiant moon in the night sky. The moon was more than halfway full, casting its gentle glow upon the tranquil surroundings. Moonlight cascaded like flowing water, casting ethereal shadows in the small courtyard. Amidst the lush green foliage, white gardenias bloomed, emitting a delicate fragrance that permeated the air. As a gentle breeze caressed the area, the scent of the flowers filled Xian's nostrils. Admiring the moon here, my love? Having finished her bath, Xian noticed Xiao Yunduan's absence in their room and found him near the gardenia bush. She approached him with a smile, joining him in his moonlit reverie. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1022, Moonlit Night. Xiao Yunduan affectionately embraced Xianxia as she got startled, attempting to break free. However, he seemed unusually resolute today, tightening his hold and preventing her from escaping. Though not physically strong, his determination was evident. As his hands touched her, Xiaoxian's skin grew warm, causing her cheeks to flush. With a smile, she protested, "What are you doing? Let go of me." "Wife, let us consummate our marriage tonight," he whispered. "What?" Xiaoxian's eyelids twitched in surprise. "Are you unwilling?" His tone and expression softened, melting Xiaoxian's heart. Without thinking, she replied, "Of course not." "Good, as long as you agree." Xiaoxian was left speechless. Xiao Yunduan's eyes, filled with affection, sparkled under the moonlight. A charming smile graced his handsome face, making her blush. Confused, Xiaoxian stammered, But the auspicious day has already passed." Earlier, he had mentioned that they would consummate their marriage on an auspicious day, but his plans had been disrupted by the whirlwind of his return and busy days that followed. How could he find the time? That day had passed without anything happening, leaving Xiaoxian slightly disappointed. Naturally, she would never admit it to Xiao Yunduan, or his ego would soar. However, Xiao Yunduan was already quite proud of himself. He chuckled and said, "So, you've been thinking about the auspicious day. My apologies. But don't fret. Today is also an auspicious day." Xiaoxian grew startled and blushed. Playfully, she landed a punch on his arm. "What nonsense are you talking about?" I am not thinking about it." You? Xiao Yunduan burst into laughter. Yes, you are not thinking about me, but I am as well." Xiaoxian said proudly, "That is more like it." As Xiaoxian felt weightless, she realized that Xiao Yunduan had already scooped her up into his arms. Startled, she instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. Their proximity brought their gazes together. In each other's eyes, their reflections appeared both clear and hazy. Their entwined gaze blurred their vision, stirred their hearts, and left their minds in a whirl. Feeling overwhelmed, Xiaoxian feigned composure and averted her eyes, her face and ears turning crimson. Xiao Yunduan smiled, lowered his head, and planted kisses on her cheeks, forehead, eyebrows, and finally her lips. Xiaoxian's mind went blank, her body growing limp. Her heart raced in a flurry, causing her to panic. However, Xiao Yunduan only bestowed gentle kisses upon her. Chuckling softly, he carried her towards the bedroom. Thick curtains concealed their intimate moments, keeping them hidden from prying eyes. Xiaoxian drifted into a deep, restful sleep, surrendering herself to the comfort of the bed. When she finally woke up, it was already afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the window veils, casting diagonal beams on the light green tiles. The rustling of leaves could be faintly heard as the wind brushed past. Blushing, Xiaoxian averted her gaze upon seeing Xiao Yunduan's smiling eyes. Savoring the moment, Xiao Yunduan tightened his embrace and brushed his lips against her face. "Are you awake?" Today, it didn't matter if she slept in. Xiaoxian had no fear of gossip. Instead, she felt a heightened sense of embarrassment in Xiao Yunduan's presence. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1023, Finally Perfect. "Why aren't you up yet?" Xiao Yunduan playfully exclaimed. Xiaoxian wished he would vanish instantly. With a tender smile, Xiao Yunduan continued to nuzzle against her. "I can't bear to be away from my wife." Xiaoxian blushed, feeling utterly powerless. Her embarrassment intensified, and she weakly punched Xiao Yunduan. "What do you mean you can't bear to be away from me? I don't believe it. You're just trying to make me happy." If he truly couldn't bear to be apart from her, why didn't he stop when she pleaded and cried? Therefore, no matter how gentle and refined a man appeared, he was still the same. Especially in certain circumstances, he couldn't be trusted. Anyone who believed him would be a fool. Xiao Yunduan chuckled and pinched her cheeks. I'm not trying to coax you. Xianxia snorted, closed her eyes, and buried herself under the blanket. She didn't feel like talking to him at the moment. Wife? Xiao Yunduan's voice sounded as he was carried away. Sleep a little longer. I'll get up first. I'll ask Li Xia to stay in the outer room. When you're ready, just let her know, and I'll bring you hot water for a bath. That sounds reasonable. Xiao felt a hint of satisfaction and nodded from beneath the quilt. Xiao Yunduan smiled and got up. His wife was finally his. His heart finally found peace. He had always been afraid she would leave, fearful that she would disappear if he wasn't careful. He couldn't bear such an outcome, no matter what. As footsteps faded, Xiao lifted her head from the blanket and let out a sigh of relief. She relaxed on the bed, limbs sprawled. Absently, she stared at the canopy above, allowing her mind to wander freely. Suddenly, the memory of last night flooded Xiaoxian's mind, causing her face to flush. She felt even more tender and vulnerable. Biting her lip, she rolled over with the blanket, letting out a soft sigh. However, a gentle smile tugged at the corners of her lips, and her eyes brimmed with affection. They were truly husband and wife now. From this point forward, they would stay by each other's side, supporting and cherishing one another for the rest of their lives. There was no turning back. And she didn't want to turn back. This man would eventually be hers. It had been worth the wait until now. No matter what, in this moment, she could see and feel how good he was to her. If she let him slip away, she would deeply regret it. In the first section of the family, everyone sensed that something had changed. Yet no one could put a finger on it. Even young Xiaoni, not known for her keen perception, couldn't help but lean into Xiao Sanlang and whisper, "Brother Sanlang, don't you think fifth brother and fifth sister-in-law have grown so much closer? Look at them, they're inseparable and so affectionate." Oh my, it's embarrassing to witness. Xiao Sanlang, being even more clueless, scratched his head and replied, "Really? I hadn't noticed. But now that you mention it, they do seem quite close. Well, it's not surprising. They must be thrilled to finally be home. Think about it, even though Old Master is highly respected, there's always so much to handle. They must feel more at ease here." Young Xiaoni pondered for a moment and nodded in admiration. She came to a realization. "You're right, Brother Sanling. That makes sense. That's it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1024, Inspecting the Industry. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were oblivious to this amusing situation. Otherwise, they would have burst into laughter. However, ever since the couple tied the knot, an unspoken closeness developed between them. Their shared understanding and the sweet aura of exchanging smiles couldn't be concealed. In the past few days, they had become incredibly affectionate, almost like newlyweds. Xiao Yunduan preferred to have no one else around except his beloved wife. They were truly inseparable. Witnessing their intimacy, Ms. Fong couldn't contain her happiness. Her fifth son had finally realized the importance of cherishing his wife. Previously, there had always been a slight distance between them, but now he had learned how to dote on his wife. Ms. Fong attributed this change to her son's newfound official position, as if his long-cherished wish had finally been fulfilled. After taking a few days of rest, Xiao Xian began organizing their belongings. Of course, lipstick held the highest priority. As planned, the flower field was expanding this year. As expected, the newly planted flowers weren't thriving as well without the assistance of superpowers. However, it didn't matter. After all, she was back now. With a few more applications of superpowers, she would be able to catch up in no time. Thankfully, the dozens of acres were still flourishing. The flowers were large, vibrant, and in pristine condition, producing the same excellent quality lipstick. This year, they had distributed a total of 80 beehives. Though they would require feeding sugar during the winter to ensure the bees had enough food, it was a worthwhile investment. After all, their bees were primarily raised for beeswax, with honey being just a byproduct. No matter how much sugar was fed during winter, they wouldn't be at a loss financially. They needed to increase the production of lipstick. The bees would have to continue multiplying next year. When Xianxia and Xiaoyuan were absent, the silver fungus, covering an area of over 8 mu, had been harvested twice. The quantity was modest, but the quality remained excellent, so Yang Xiaoni and Xiao Sanlang took charge of it. Xiao Xian pondered the possibility of expanding the scale even further. This year, cassava had also been planted on a large scale. The plant was incredibly resilient and vigorous, growing vigorously from any cut made. The abundance of leaves made it an excellent source of feed for cows, chickens, ducks, and pig pens. In the village, almost every family had planted cassava and developed a fondness for it. Many people expressed their intention to increase its cultivation next year. What amazed Xiao Xian the most was the garden spanning 12 acres behind the yard. The day after her return, she took some time to explore the area and discreetly used her superpower to aid its growth. The variety of Gastrodia elata, ginseng, and other medicinal herbs were thriving. However, it was the fruit trees from the southern region that truly astounded her. The trunks of the lychee, mango, and longan trees had grown to the size of eggs. They appeared lush and exceptionally healthy. What excited her even more was the fact that several trees had bloomed this year. Xiao Xian couldn't contain her eagerness to see the fruits, which brought immense joy to her heart. With tangible results, she had the ability to ensure the safe maturation of these fruits. Did this mean that they would be able to enjoy longan, lychee, mango, and carambola this year? It was a delightful surprise. Since these fruits could be successfully cultivated, she planned to seek assistance from Yuezhing Shao in acquiring more southern seedlings. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1025, Fruits. The 1,200 mu of land on the outskirts of the provincial city remained unplanted. Xiao Xian couldn't help but imagine the wonderful possibilities of opening a fruit garden and raising chickens in the meantime, while waiting for the fruit trees to grow. With the ability to cultivate plants in the space, Xiao Xian had no intentions of holding back. She had already meticulously planned out the land in the space, allocating areas for orchards, herbs, vegetables, and flowers. Of course, the primary focus was growing food. There had to be ample amounts of wheat, rice, oats, corn, and soybeans. She also had plans for cassava. And in the future, potatoes would be included as well. Xiao Xian gathered dozens of false starworts, Gastrodia elata, and other herbs, planting them alongside the ginseng and lingzhi in the space. The spiritual energy within the space was abundant. Even if the seedlings were initially frail and weak, it wouldn't take long for them to thrive and become robust. There were also numerous fruit trees. This aspect was exceptionally convenient as they could grow and mature rapidly. Lychee, longan, mango, papaya, dragon fruit, pomegranate, fig, loquat, cherry, watermelon. Xiao Xian didn't overlook a single fruit. Once the fruits ripened, she would pick and store them in the intermediate compartment of the hut. They would remain fresh and could be enjoyed at any time. When Xiao Xian accompanied Xiaoyuan to the capital, the honeydew seeds weren't suitable for breeding. Hence, she entrusted Tao Tao and Ms. Su to cultivate and transplant them. During that time, she had attempted to infuse some superpowers into the seeds, but she wasn't certain if it would yield results. Judging by the current progress, it seemed to be quite effective, didn't it? The cantaloupe seedlings also appeared promising, with small melons already growing. They were incredibly adorable and charming. Tao Tao and the others observed her attentively. Xiao Xian also transplanted several trees into the space. With the application of her superpower, the fruit trees in the garden seemed to flourish even more, radiating vibrant greenery and boundless energy. As it was the busiest time for making lipsticks, Xiao Xian, Tao Tao, Yang Xiaoni, Chunyu, Chunfeng, and Lixia headed to the flower field to lend a hand. Accompanied by 5 girls from the village, Cao Cao took charge and the girls followed her instructions diligently. They were assigned to pick and wash the petals, while Chunyu and the others transported them to the house where the lipsticks were made. The process proceeded with remarkable efficiency and orderliness. Xiaoxian was highly satisfied with the outcome. She gave Cao Cao a thumbs up and complimented her, saying, "Cao Cao, you're becoming more and more capable." Cao Cao's eyes sparkled, her face beaming with pride and a hint of shyness. "Fifth sister-in-law taught me everything. I simply followed her instructions." Upon returning home, Cao Cao clung to Xiaoxian, tagging along wherever she went. Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but feel a little down when he saw their closeness as a married couple. Xiaoxian smiled and remarked, "Cao Cao is smart. That's why she's able to learn so quickly." Yang Xiaoni agreed, nodding emphatically. Yes, I'm not as capable as her. I'm only good with manual tasks. Using my brain and communication skills is quite challenging." Hearing this, everyone burst into laughter. The following day, Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan visited Zhang village, exploring the surroundings. The lush creeping fig, the inviting tea house, and the fertile fields all brought Xiao Xian immense joy and a profound sense of accomplishment. This year, tea saplings were successfully planted in all the tea houses, and the survival rate of the newly transplanted seedlings exceeded 95%. It was an excellent outcome even without Xiao Xian's intervention. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1026, The Pool in the Space. After the tea trees sprouted, Xiao Xian planned to gradually replenish the scattered seeds. The previously planted tea trees had been harvested this year, thanks to Manager Mu's efficient arrangements. With the assistance of Yuezheng Shao and Ding Erju and his wife, the tea leaves were successfully produced and sold, causing quite a stir in the provincial city. Yuezheng Shao, as usual, kept the source of the exquisite tea a secret, leaving the tea merchants perplexed and eventually giving up their inquiries. As long as they could obtain the goods and verify their authenticity, they were satisfied. As for how long they could maintain this secrecy, time would tell. Delighted by the success, Xiao Xian discussed with Xiao Yunduan and decided to purchase an additional 1,000 mu of land in Zhang village, intending to gradually establish a larger tea house. With the vast expanse of Great Qin, the demand for tea leaves was insatiable every year. The higher the quality of the tea leaves, the more sought after they became. Even if the supply increased in the future and the prices of golden sprouts and lavender decreased, the tea house would still yield substantial profits. It was a venture that wouldn't go wrong. Such exceptional tea leaves deserved recognition and appreciation from around the world. Xiao Xian carefully stored away the tea tree as well. As they were preparing to leave, Ding Erju presented Xiao Xian and the others with more fish and prawns from the pond, urging them to take them back home. Xiao Xian attempted to transfer the prawns into the intermediate pool within the space, but to her surprise, they ended up in there too. Overjoyed, she couldn't contain her excitement. This was even better. It meant that in the future, fish and prawns could be self-sufficient. Upon returning home, Xiao Xian went to the backyard to assess the situation. She scooped up mandarin fish, eel, Chinese perch, carp, and other fish from the pool and placed them in the designated fish pond within her space. To her surprise, the pool in the space automatically split into two sections, a pristine spring pool and a fish pond. The fish and prawns she transferred entered the designated area seamlessly. Xiao Xian couldn't help but feel amazed at the incredible functionality of the space. She pondered whether this meant that during her travels to different locations, aside from collecting various crops, fruit trees, flowers, and herbs, she could also gather local fish, prawns, and other aquatic products. If the seafood space could accommodate them, she would be overjoyed. Later that night, Xiao Xian prepared a delicious feast. The menu included tea-flavored prawns, stir-fried eel shreds, fish and goat pot, steamed meat with lotus leaves, stir-fried shredded bamboo shoots, garlic eggplant, century egg mixed with tofu, stir-fried wolfberry sprouts, and asparagus slices. Today, Ms.Yan delivered tofu along with smoked bean jerky, oil skin, and deep-fried tofu, which they plan to enjoy the next day. It wouldn't be appropriate to invite Ms.Yan for dinner alone, so they decided to invite her to join them for a barbecue in a few days. Ever since Xian and Xiao returned home, the house had been bustling with activity, and Ms.Yan often came to lend a helping hand. Although she appeared ordinary, she possessed remarkable intelligence, poise, and organizational skills, earning praise from everyone. Behind closed doors, Ms. Fong secretly felt sorry for Ms. Niu and second uncle. Fortunately, the Yan family was also prosperous. With their thriving bean product business, they were making substantial profits. It was rumored that they planned to build a large house and courtyard by the end of the year and acquire some fields. With such backing, Ms. Niu dared not flaunt her status as the mother-in-law. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1027, Two Faces. It was amusing that when Xian accompanied Xiao to the capital for the examination, Ms. Niu and second uncle were constantly making sarcastic remarks from outside. They would mock the first branch of the family for their recklessness, questioning how they could allow Xian, a woman, to venture out with a man. Or perhaps they wanted to take the examination themselves. They believed it would bring bad luck if a woman joined them. It was already surprising enough that she wanted to participate in the examination at all. While others might not have been familiar with Xiao Yunduan's character and abilities, they were from the same village. Being an intermediate recommended candidate was already an impressive achievement. It was like being an advanced incense burner. The intermediate provincial champion had been a stroke of luck and happenstance. Becoming an advanced scholar was no easy feat in the vast realm of Great Qin. Numerous scholars and young talents hailed from scholarly and prestigious families. They had been groomed for greatness from a young age, so naturally, they were more accomplished than Xiao Yunduan. As for Xiao Yunduan, it would be best for him to abandon such thoughts to avoid disappointment. When these words reached the first branch of the Xiao family, Ms. Fong sneered and pretended not to hear them. She maintained control over the family, forbidding any internal disputes regarding this matter. If someone dared to bring it up in front of them, they would retaliate, saying, "If you hold such contempt for my brother, why don't your children stop attending the school that he sponsors?" The person in question was taking advantage of others and resorting to snide remarks. It was evident that they had ulterior motives. However, since Xian and Xiao Yunduan were not present at home, Ms. Fong decided not to involve herself and dismissed the matter. Furthermore, arguing with others would be futile. They had to rely on Xiao Yunduan's performance. Once Xiao Yunduan achieved success in the examination, his family would be proud and prove those detractors wrong. If he failed to qualify for the intermediate examination, what would be the point of engaging in arguments at this stage? Naturally, Ms. Fong didn't pay much attention even if her son didn't pass the intermediate examination. Ms. Niu and second uncle were correct about one thing. There were numerous scholars throughout the entire Duqin kingdom, so it was not uncommon for their son to have failed the intermediate exam twice. However, their choice of words was distasteful and unpleasant. On the other hand, Ms. Fong had immense faith in her son. She firmly believed in his capabilities and was convinced that he would undoubtedly succeed in the intermediate examination. To their astonishment, Xiao Yunduan emerged as the top scorer. The top scorer? He ranked first among all the scholars. How many individuals could claim such a distinction? Only one. When the news arrived from County Magistrate Xiao, Ms. Fong couldn't contain her joy. She was left speechless, and the entire first branch of the Xiao family was overwhelmed with excitement. The land officer and the elders in the family were moved to tears. They showered him with endless praise and promptly opened the ancestral hall to announce this momentous news. Consequently, the first branch of the Xiao family became the most esteemed family in the village. Nobody dared to harbor jealousy toward them anymore. Those who were envious were simply unworthy of such feelings. Conversely, many people began to admire their family. He was the illustrious Primus. Now that he held an official position, he might even rise to become a high-ranking official in the future. Thus, when Ms. Fang encountered Ms. Niu on one occasion, she taunted her with an air of arrogance, leaving Ms. Niu so infuriated that she departed without uttering a word. Unexpectedly, both Ms. Niu and second uncle displayed shamelessness by pleading with eldest uncle. They admitted their wrongdoing, expressed their reluctance to cause any further trouble, and vowed to respect their elder brother. They humbly implored him to restore familial harmony as it had been before. Ms. Niu slapped her own face and scolded herself for what she had done wrong and for turning over a new leaf. Second Unli burst into tears and said that it was all his fault in the past, and now he knew that he was wrong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1028, Reject. Eldest uncle couldn't bear to witness his parents crying and begging before him. In a moment of impulse, he agreed to their request. But as he began to express this to Ms. Fang, she interrupted him with a cold smile. So, you're using Yun Duan's reputation as the Primus to do favors for such a heartless person. You truly embody the role of Yun Duan's biological father. Just take a look at their faces if Yun Duan hadn't made it into the intermediate exam. Don't pretend you didn't hear anything. Eldest uncle furrowed his brow, torn and conflicted. He wasn't angered by Ms. Fang's reprimand. Instead, he let out a sigh and spoke, I understand. But Yun Duan has already reached the intermediate level, right? Second brother and the others won't dare to repeat their actions. They merely wish to salvage their reputation. Yes, they're not merely seeking to salvage their reputation. Ms. Fang sneered. They also want to continue their bullying. Eldest uncle choked on his words. Well, you can't. It's not up to you. Ms. Fang retorted coldly. When the time comes, what will you do? Let me make it clear, I won't allow you to use Yunduan's name for this purpose. You'll have to wait for Yunduan's return. You can ask him yourself. If he agrees, I won't object. But if he disagrees, don't even think about it. In my opinion, Ms. Niu and her husband are two-faced and deceitful. They are excessively greedy. With the support of the Yan family, their two sons are working there and earning a considerable amount of money. Shouldn't they be satisfied? What more do they want? Ms. Fang had worked hard to distance herself from the second branch of the family, and she had no intention of allowing them to enter her home and spew nonsense. She reveled in her freedom and refused to acknowledge their existence. To do so would only invite disaster. Eldest uncle grew slightly irritated. Yunduan listens to you at all. If you want to ask him, go ahead and ask him yourself. But Ms. Fang had no intention of allowing that. Then why don't you reflect on why Yunduan listens to me? Look at what you've done. You're truly praiseworthy. Just ask Dalong, Sanling, Qi, Tao. None of them have any fondness for Ms. Niu and her husband. Not only did the second branch of the family wish to break away, but they even contemplated severing ties with the third branch. You. Eldest uncle grew even angrier. Ms. Fang sneered in response. Yunduan is the Primus, and he has the final say in our family. Don't bother running to the land officer and the rest of the family. It's futile. If Yunduan doesn't agree, they'll disregard you. If you truly have no regard for our family and are so heartless, then let's divorce and divide the family. You can go with Ms. Niu and her husband. With those biting words, Ms. Fang stormed off angrily, paying no heed to eldest uncle's thoughts. She was genuinely infuriated. Didn't he understand the true nature of the second branch of the family? He did. Yet, he remained soft-hearted. His heart softened, clouding his judgment. He dared to engage in all sorts of shameless acts. She saw right through him. Ms. Fang grew so exasperated that she visited Ms. Niu and second uncle's home the next day, accompanied by her two daughters-in-law. She openly taunted the couple, leaving them greatly vexed. Ms. Nyo wished to scold her, but she didn't dare, resulting in her blushing with anger. It was quite amusing to Ms. Fong as well. She had been seething with anger, searching for an outlet to vent, and now she found herself venting it on Ms. Yan. But was Ms. Yan someone who would tolerate such mistreatment? She hadn't done anything wrong, so she couldn't fathom listening to Ms. Nyo's insults and weeping to the point where she sought solace at her mother's house. Ms. Nyo was so anxious that she couldn't prevent her departure at all. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1029, Not Easily Offended. The following day, the entire Yan family, including Ms. Yan's parents, brothers, and sisters-in-law, arrived at the doorstep, causing Ms. Nyo to tremble in fear, hiding away in her room and refusing to come out. However, she couldn't avoid the Yan family's presence. Unlike Ms. Zhang's family in the past, the Yan family didn't create a scene and approached the situation with reasonableness. Mr. Yan asked Ms. Nyo what she had done wrong. What were her mistakes? She also acknowledged that her family held some responsibility, and it would be best if they could point out their errors so that they could guide Ms. Yan in the right direction. After all, Ms. Yan was their daughter, and they would never abandon her. Nevertheless, this matter couldn't be postponed any further. As it stood, only the Yan family had come today. Xiao Erlang and Xiao Silang were still diligently working at the tofu store's workshop, unaffected by the situation. It had to be acknowledged that the Yan family possessed remarkable tact. They took this opportunity to mention Xiao Erlang and Xiao Silang. Ms. Nyo and second uncle were dumbfounded. Truly, the Yan family was extraordinarily magnanimous. Their business thrived, and the salaries they provided to Xiao Erlang and Xiao Silang continued to increase. Each of them now earned 5 liang per month, totaling 8 liang combined. In the past, their family couldn't save such a substantial amount of money in an entire year, but now they could achieve it in just 1 month. Without this income, Ms. Nyo would go insane, let alone second uncle. Second uncle grew increasingly anxious, even praising Ms. Yan while reprimanding Ms. Nyo. Ms. Nyo felt a mix of anger and fear, but she had no choice but to admit her mistakes. She forced a smile and claimed that she had been so infuriated that she uttered a few thoughtless words to Ms. Yan, but they shouldn't be taken seriously. Mrs. Yan couldn't be easily deceived. Under her persistent questioning, Ms. Nyo had no choice but to change her words and admit that she didn't just make casual remarks but had actually scolded Ms. Yan. She also made a promise that it would never happen again. The elderly couple from the Yan family scolded Ms. Yan once more and instructed her not to throw tantrums in the future. Ms. Yan agreed, and thus the matter was resolved. After having lunch at second uncle's house, second uncle asked Ms. Nyo and Ms. Yan to prepare chicken and steam-cured meat for the guests, and the Yan family returned home. As soon as the Yan family arrived back, Ms. Nyo glared at Ms. Yan, but second uncle immediately pulled her away. He gave her a warning, and Ms. Nyo realized what was going on. Annoyed and frightened, she dared not throw another tantrum at Ms. Yan. She truly couldn't afford to offend her daughter-in-law. Speaking of which, Ms. Nyo and second uncle failed to reconcile with the first section of the family and became the subject of mockery by many villagers. Aware of Ms. Yan's close relationship with the first section of the family, they hoped that Ms. Yan would intervene on their behalf. However, Ms. Yan politely declined their request. Aunt and sister-in-law, the respect they have for me is based on my own merit. I can't dare to meddle in such matters. If I can't even control uncle's words, how can I wield such influence? It wouldn't be good if aunt and the others became angry with me as well. Ms. Nyo and second uncle were left feeling helpless. Ms. Nyo's fury only intensified. What kind of family is this? Which daughter-in-law wields so much power that I, as the mother-in-law, can't even say anything to her? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1030, She's So Precious. What do you mean by right or wrong? Do you think your daughter-in-law can argue with her mother-in-law? Look at other families, the mother-in-law is always right. Find a daughter-in-law for second brother and get him married, or I will make Ms.Yan furious. Second uncle shot her a stern look and snapped, "Shut up. You're the one who talks too much. Ms.Yan did nothing wrong, so why are you scolding her? I've told you that the Yan family is not to be messed with." Ms. Nyo remained unconvinced. So what if she did something wrong? I am her mother-in-law. So what if I scolded her for no reason? Which daughter-in-law doesn't feel unjustly treated? Which family doesn't have conflicts? She's too spoiled. She's too delicate. You. Enough. If you ruin second and fourth's relationship, do you think they won't blame you? Let's not discuss this further. It costs us money every month. Are you willing to bear that? Ms. Nyo didn't want to leave, so she didn't dare to offend Ms. Yan. Tell second brother that you're his daughter-in-law. Hurry up and let him know that you're his daughter-in-law. Otherwise, we can't go on like this. Since then, Ms. Nyo held a grudge against Ms. Yan, and Ms. Yan no longer made an effort to please Ms. Nyo as before. Ms. Yan finally understood and couldn't help but feel disheartened. Some people were simply like that. No matter how well you treated them, they wouldn't change. If that was the case, why should she continue trying to please her? As long as her own family was there, this mother-in-law couldn't do anything to her. In comparison, people like Elder Aunt were the best. Without a doubt, even if her third sister-in-law did not come from a wealthy family, Aunt still treated her well. If her third sister-in-law were to become her mother-in-law's daughter-in-law, she might not fare much better than her own brother and sister-in-law. When Xiaoyunduan returned to the village to pay respects to his ancestors, Ms. Nyo and second Li, who had given up hope, felt a glimmer of excitement. Second Li pretended to be drunk and pleaded with Xiaoyunduan in front of everyone, hoping to mend their relationship. Eldest uncle blushed and looked at Xiaoyunduan with pleading eyes. Xiaoyunduan casually responded, "Second Li is just talking nonsense after having too much to drink. Third brother, please help him rest. How can we involve the land officer, the chief, and the elders in making a decision? What does second Li think of our family?" Eldest uncle's face turned even redder. Xiao Sanlang grew irritated. He nodded and instructed 2 men from their tribe to escort second Li away before anything else could be said. Xiaoyunduan smiled at the land officer and the others, as if nothing had happened. He continued enjoying the food and drinks, and everyone followed suit with smiles. Soon, the incident was forgotten and put behind them. Deep down, everyone understood. Mr. Primus was indeed an exceptional scholar. He was steadfast in his principles and had a clear understanding of the situation. It was impossible to threaten him. It was clear that the fault lay with Mr. Primus. The Xiao couple had crossed a line. Even before Mr. Primus' return, they had spread gossip about him. Their actions were unforgivable. Now, it was too late for them to seek favor. Did they really believe that everyone should give in to their demands and let them do as they pleased? At this point, the second section of the family had lost all hope of reconciling with the first section of the family. During the banquet, Xiao Miling and her husband, who were already married, also attended to offer their congratulations. The first section of the Xiao family treated them like any other relatives, without any special treatment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1031, Fighting. It was ridiculous that Xiao Miling still hadn't realized her position. She felt neglected by the first section of the family, and her face darkened throughout the event. She had expected someone from the first section to acknowledge her after making such a scene. However, not even a servant like Chunyu bothered to pay her any attention. Chunyu simply pretended not to see her and warmly greeted other guests with a smile. Xiao Miling felt even more aggrieved. She wanted to create a scene but didn't dare to do so on such a significant occasion. If she dared to cause trouble, the first section of the family would undoubtedly kick her out. That would be even more embarrassing. Furthermore, with Xiao Yunduan as the Primus, she felt a sense of fear. In frustration, Xiao Meiling stomped her feet and returned home in a fit of anger, thinking that ignorance is bliss. Upon seeing her, Ms.Yan exclaimed, "What are you doing here? Did someone bully you?" Her expression hinted at causing trouble. Xiao Meiling burst into tears and cried, "The first section of the family looks down on me. They all look down on me and ignore me." Ms.Yan cursed and sighed, "That family is so snobbish. They treat poor relatives with disdain once they achieve success. Don't feel wronged, it's not worth it. Let's go over there. Humph, if they don't care about us, let's eat more. It's better to feast until they're left with nothing." Meanwhile, Xiao Meiling was extremely frustrated. When she returned to her in-laws' house, nosy women would inquire about the first section of the family. What could she possibly say? The tension between the two families was widely known in the village. She even suspected that the first section had deliberately spread the matter. This resulted in people offering sympathy, making snide remarks, and even her mother-in-law treating her in a similar manner. It was infuriating. Xiao Meiling couldn't help but blame her parents. If it weren't for them, she wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Qiao Xian had her mind set on the expansive piece of land in the suburban province. With flourishing crops like longan, lychee, and mango, she eagerly wanted to visit the provincial city and take action. She requested Yuezheng Xiao to arrange for someone to purchase seedlings from the south and start planting them. Time was of the essence. If she planted the seedlings and utilized her superpower, they would likely grow exceptionally well. Her plan was to return in mid-September or early October to check on these industries again. She would use her superpower to strengthen their growth and stay during the winter. If they managed to thrive successfully, it would bring peace of mind for the following year. After several years of employing her superpower consistently, once it reached a stable level and fully adapted to the local environment and climate, it would create a new breed. Even without relying on her superpower, the crops would likely grow, blossom, and bear fruit splendidly. This was the most desirable outcome. Qiao Xian had a strong belief that it could become a reality. Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan decided that the entire family should accompany them to the province, making the trip lively. Xiao Yunduan also agreed, recognizing the convenience of having a house in the province where they could stay. The whole family cheered up upon hearing their decision. The province was a distant place filled with prosperity, vibrancy, and an abundance of delicious food and exciting activities. Although they had been there once before, they longed to experience it again. The prospect of shopping brought great joy. "This time all of us will go. Eldest brother and sister-in-law will come along as well. Lixia and Liqiu will stay behind to take care of the house." Qiao Xian's words delighted Chunyu and the others. Packing up was a simple task. They only needed a few sets of clothes. There was no need to bring anything else. They had everything they needed at their residence in the provincial city. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1032, Not Worthy. Miss Su had not been there the last time, but now she had the opportunity to go as well. She was filled with excitement, even playfully teasing her youngest son who was not even 1 year old. "You're so fortunate. Since your birth, you've never experienced any hardships. Now, you can accompany us to the provincial city and broaden your horizons." Coincidentally, Ms.Yan happened to visit them. As she observed Yang Xiaoni, Tao Tao, and Chunyu engaged in an enthusiastic discussion, envy couldn't help but creep into her heart. Having never been to the provincial city before, Ms.Yan desired to join them. She had heard from Tao Tao and the others about the liveliness and enjoyment one experienced upon returning to the provincial city, and her longing grew stronger. "When will I have the chance to go?" she wondered. Yang Xiaoni giggled and inquired, "Sister-in-law, is there anything you would like to purchase? Should I bring it back for you?" Ms.Yan smiled and replied, "Absolutely. After some deliberation, Ms. Yan began counting on her fingers. I need some face cream. Please get me 2, no, 5 portions. 1 for my mother and 2 for my sisters-in-law. 5th sister-in-law, please help me select ones that are both effective and reasonably priced. Also, add 2 packets of silk thread. The silk threads available in the provincial city are finer and come in a wider range of colors. Additionally, buy me 3 or 4 pairs of exquisite silk flowers, and the current fashion favors ordinary gingham cloth for clothing. Bring me 5 of those as well, 2 for the elderly couple and 4 for the younger one. If you come across any delectable snacks or stir-fried preserves, please bring some back for me. Xianxia tallied the items on her fingers and smiled in agreement. Don't worry, I won't disappoint you. With 5th sister-in-law's good taste, I'm confident she'll choose the most suitable ones for you. Ms. Yan nodded, her smile widening. Absolutely. Curiosity got the better of Xianxia, and she couldn't help but ask, are you buying so many clothes for your father-in-law and mother-in-law? Ms. Yan pursed her lips and whispered under her breath, give it to them? I don't mind spending so much money, but certain individuals are simply unworthy. I bought those for my own parents. Initially, I was considering not bringing them home if 3rd sister-in-law told anyone about it, but I'll take them to my parents' house instead. Xianxia was aware of the recent events concerning the 2nd branch of the family. Additionally, she had experienced mistreatment from her own family in the past, so she could empathize with the situation. Letting out a sigh, she remarked, you're right. There are all kinds of people. Some individuals simply don't deserve to be cherished. Fortunately, your family is capable and can handle any situation without fear. Ms. Yan smiled and exchanged a knowing glance with Xian. If it weren't for 5th sister-in-law, their family wouldn't be in such a favorable position now. She would always remember this kindness. Having purchased the food, Ms. Yan intended to keep what she needed for herself. Ms. Nyo wouldn't dare to snatch the food from her own family. At most, they would share it. Besides the dividends, her husband's monthly salary had reached 7 liang. The couple deducted 2 liang and saved the remaining 5. With money in their hands, they didn't have to rely on anyone to fulfill their needs. Naturally, they had no fear of unreasonable demands from their mother-in-law. Not only her husband and 2nd brother, but Xiao Meiling's husband and father-in-law also worked at the Yan family's bean production workshop, earning 2 liang each month. There was no justification for her to be unjustly treated. After discussing their shopping plans, Ms. Yan exchanged a meaningful look with Xian, conveying her intentions. Xian called her over with a smile, and they began conversing under the shade of the loquat tree in the yard. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1033, Ms. Yan knows. 5th sister-in-law, have you heard that my father-in-law and mother-in-law are looking for a daughter-in-law for my 2nd brother? Ms. Yan asked. Xian nodded, saying, yes, that's quite common. Ms. Yan let out a sigh and continued, yes. 2nd brother is still young, but he already has 2 children. Despite that, his family is doing well, and many people are willing to marry him. According to my mother-in-law, even a 15 or 16-year-old girl is willing to become his wife, which makes her feel very proud. But can a 15 or 16-year-old girl truly be a stepmother to her own grandchildren? Xian replied with a knowing smile. Understanding her point, Ms. Yan said, I can't hide anything from you, 5th sister-in-law. She blushed slightly and continued, on my mother's side, I have a cousin who is a widow. She is about the same age as 2nd brother and has a kind-hearted and down-to-earth nature. However, she hasn't been lucky. After her husband, the only son in the family, passed away, her husband's clan pressured her to adopt a child around 7 or 8 years old to carry on the family lineage. Think about it, 5th sister-in-law. How can we adopt a child who is already aware of his biological parents? How can he not feel attached to them? Even if we adopt him, it would just be raising someone else's son. My cousin refused, so she returned to her maternal family. While her parents, brothers, and sister-in-law are supportive, relying on them in the future after her parents pass away may not be ideal. Since second brother is looking for a daughter-in-law, my mother wants to propose this idea for her. What do you think, fifth sister-in-law? Ms.Yan knew that Xianxia understood the situation. Although the first section of the family had severed ties with the second section, they wouldn't turn a blind eye if something truly happened to the second section. As for the second section of the family, they would undoubtedly be satisfied with their daughter-in-law chosen by the first section. Ms.Yan sought Xiaoxian's opinion because she knew that fifth sister-in-law was clever and had a plan in mind. If she could help, it would be easier for her family to navigate this matter. However, Ms.Yan had no intention of informing her father-in-law and mother-in-law about the proposal. While her father-in-law might be accepting, her mother-in-law would certainly react with anger. If she were to suggest it, it would be met with immediate rejection. On the other hand, second brother was currently occupied with his work in the workshop, and his father and brothers treated him well. If they were to approach him and suggest meeting his potential daughter-in-law, he would likely agree without much hesitation. Once he gave his approval, there would be no issues with their father-in-law and mother-in-law. Xiaoxian hoped that the second section of the family would marry a reliable woman to avoid any potential troubles. After the incident with Ms. Zhang, they couldn't afford to let their guard down. Is your cousin truly a good person? Xiaoxian inquired. Ms. Yan nodded, a smile gracing her face. Of course, I can vouch for her. Xiaoxian smiled, finding reassurance in Ms. Yan's response. It made sense that Ms. Yan wouldn't accept her cousin if she wasn't genuinely good-hearted, considering she would become her sister-in-law upon marriage. I will discuss it with my mother-in-law first, and then I'll let you know, Xiaoxian assured. All right, I'll wait for you, fifth sister-in-law, Ms. Yan replied with a smile. Don't worry, I'll come again this evening. When Xiaoxian relayed the proposal to Ms. Fang, she also believed it was for the best. Ms. Yan desired a good match for Xiao Erlang more than anyone else, so she was likely to support the idea. After delivering the message to Ms. Yan, the first section of the family set off for the province the following day. The villagers couldn't help but feel envious. The first section of the Xiao family had achieved great success, and everyone in their family had gained recognition. Many villagers had never dared to dream of going to the province in their lifetime, yet the Xiao family went there so effortlessly. Concerned that Ms. Niu might divulge the engagement plans to Xiao Erlang, Ms. Yan decided to tell her mother straight away. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1034, Wife. Mr. Yan and Mrs. Yan graciously invited Xiao Erlang and his brother to their home for lunch. After informing them about the invitation, they requested Mei Qing to come over and meet Xiao Erlang. If he found her interesting, they hoped he would consider settling down. Xiao Erlang found himself tempted by the proposition. He had already given up on pursuing Ms. Zhang, determined not to cause her any further trouble. His family couldn't tolerate the torment she had inflicted upon them, and he was concerned that she might lead his children astray. Realizing that he was still young and that his children shouldn't grow up without a mother figure, he understood the importance of eventually getting married. However, he didn't trust his mother's taste in choosing a partner for him. Additionally, he wasn't keen on marrying a girl as young as 15 or 16. He doubted she would be capable of caring for his child. It seemed more reasonable to consider marrying a young widow. After all, hadn't his father remarried? Furthermore, given that the elderly couple from the Yan family had requested to play matchmakers, it felt inconvenient for him to refuse their proposition. Reluctantly, Xiao Erlang agreed to meet Mei Qing the following day. On the designated day, Mei Qing arrived at the Yan family residence. To Xiao Erlang's surprise, he found himself quite taken with her and immediately agreed to proceed. Upon returning home, he informed his father, who initially expressed discontent, wondering why his son, with such a privileged background, would choose to marry a widow. He pointed out that there were many suitable young girls available. Hearing Xiao Erlang's explanation, his lack of trust in his mother's judgment and concerns about his own youth and ability to care for a child, his father, second uncle, hesitated. Second uncle also had doubts about Ms. Nio's judgment, fearing that another woman like Ms. Zhang would cause chaos in the household. After a brief moment of hesitation, seeing that his son was willing, second uncle decided not to voice his concerns any further. However, when Xiao Erlang relayed the news to Ms. Nio, she exploded in anger. "What did you say? You're going to marry a widow? You disappointing child, you'll be the death of me with your thoughtless decisions." She had recently been upset with the rest of the family, so she saw the opportunity of finding Xiao Erlang a daughter-in-law as a chance to show off. In fact, because of her, many daughters-in-law and women in the village had been currying favor with her and introducing her to their relatives in the past few days. She felt incredibly smug and proud. Therefore, she had been eager to be selective until now. But then, her son actually came and told her that he wanted to marry a widow. A widow? Ms. Nio felt as if she had been slapped in the face. However, the more she resisted, the more determined Xiao Erlang became. He patiently explained to his mother that he already had 2 children, and marrying a widow would make him more capable of caring for them. It was better than marrying a young girl who was 15 or 16 years old. How could she possibly know how to be a mother? Moreover, at 25 years old, he didn't want to marry someone much younger than him. Furthermore, he had seen Mei Qing before and believed she was a genuinely good person. She was the perfect match for him. But no matter what, Ms. Nio refused to accept it. Xiao Erlang became irritated and decided not to explain any further. In short, he wanted to marry Mei Qing. If his mother didn't help him, he would find a matchmaker and make it known that he definitely wouldn't marry the girl his mother chose. Second uncle also scolded Ms. Nio, reminding her that since Xiao Erlang had set his sights on Mei Qing, she couldn't blame his parents in the future and should refrain from interfering. Ms. Nio grew increasingly frustrated as she couldn't persuade the father and son, so she reluctantly agreed. After all, it was a second marriage, so there was no need to be overly particular. Moreover, Xiao Erlang urgently needed a daughter-in-law to come back and take care of the children, handle household chores, and so on. Mei Qing was eager to leave her mother's house as soon as possible, so it truly would be inconvenient for her to stay there any longer. The two sides hit it off immediately. There was a good day at the beginning of next month, so the wedding was set at that time. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.